The first we're going to recognize is the Georgia Day. And whereas the state of Georgia was founded by General James Edward Oglethorpe, who received a royal charter for establishing a colony in honor of King George II, and led 116 people from England on the HMS Anne, landing near present-day Savannah on February 12, 1733. And whereas George Walton, Button Gwinnett, and Lyman Hall each signed the Declaration of Independence on behalf of Georgia, which became the fourth state to ratify the U.S. Constitution on January 2nd, 1788. And whereas since its founding 282 years ago, Georgia has grown to over 9 million people and has progressed from a rural state to a commercial, financial, and cultural center of the Southeast and the nation. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim February 12th, 2015 as Georgia Day in the City of Roswell, and encourage all of our citizens to participate. Do we have a representative from the Daughters of the American Revolution here to say more?
I want to thank you so much for supporting and presenting the Martha Stewart Bullock chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution with our Georgia Day proclamation. As a state, we have so much to celebrate in our 282-year history. I am very proud to be a Georgian, and I'm very grateful to live in a community like Roswell, Georgia. So thank you so much for this.
Let's have a hand for the Martha Stewart Bullock Daughters of the American Revolution. Thank you. And next, my favorite month, Roswell Black History Month, is upon us. Whereas the celebration of Black History Month was begun by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the son of former slaves. And whereas Black History Month has been celebrated nationally in America since 1926, and whereas February was designated Black History Month in recognition of black achievements that greatly impacted American history. And whereas the Historic and Cultural Affairs Division of the City of Roswell Recreation Parks Historic and Cultural Affairs Department, working with a volunteer steering committee, will host the Roswell Roots Festival of Black History and Culture for the 14th year. And whereas the Groveway Community Group, the Roswell Regional Library, the Southern Trilogy Homes, the Visitor Center, Zion Missionary Baptist Church, Teaching Museum North, the Roswell Historical Society, Aurora Cineplex, and the Kings and Queens Chapter of the American Bridge Association are also participating. And whereas the 2015 Roswell Roots Festival includes 7 exhibits and 25 events, including art, cooking, drumming, live concerts featuring Ruthie Foster, storytelling, lecturers, panel discussions, a poetry slam, a pound cake cook-off, a film screening, a bid whist card party, and more. And whereas Roswell Roots Festival celebrates the contributions of Roswell's African-American citizens, both past and present, now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim all of February 2015 as Black History Month, and call upon all of our citizens and all of you to join in this celebration. And with that, who is going to tell us more about Black History Month? Morgan Timmis, all of you. We have several people here for Black History Month.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Yes, this year we do have sort of an embarrassment of riches of events, 25. I think it's the most we've had, along with the 7-month-long exhibits that we have in various locations, and all of the wonderful partners that have come forward to partner with us for it. And several of our Roots Committee members are here. Many of them are returning members. We've had a lot of new members participate this year. So I'm going to invite each one of the ones who's here to tell you what they're involved in, and then I'll finish up. So, Gail.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Gail Bohannon, and I had the honor of celebrating Groveway's Black History Program at the Cultural Arts Center on February the 1st for the kickoff. We had a wonderful attendance. One of our very own, Tequila Wilkes, who grew up in the Groveway area, wrote the play and directed the play. It was an awesome play. History in the making, and I think we're going to try to get her to continue, because it's one of those type of stories that you wanted more, and it ended very quickly before Super Bowl got started, because I think we were out about 3:45, and that's a record in itself.
Thank you, Gail. I'm sorry I missed it this year. I was out of town, but I hope it comes back so I can see it next year.
Hi there, I'm Pam Billingsley from Bullock Hall. We're excited about the month and we'll be doing several things. One temporary exhibit that we have is called Before Teflon, The Challenge of Cast Iron Cooking. It's a neat exhibit telling you the do's and don'ts of cast iron cooking. It's much better than Teflon, much more sturdy, but you don't want to soak your pots in water, I can tell you that. The other thing is that's always open is the Slave Life in the Piedmont exhibit. That will be open all the time during the month. And the last Saturday of the month, I'll be doing some 19th century open hearth cooking. Just some techniques that were used back then, like fishing a fish on a plank, stuffing a squash, and having that on the hearth and that kind of thing. So hopefully you'll come and see us. We'd like that. Thank you.
I'm Chuck Douglas, the coordinator of the Smith Plantation, and we started our celebration there last weekend. We had a very successful opening of Sharon Crumley. She's a local Roswell artist of her mixed media show. It's open throughout every day, and people can come and see that. On the 21st, Clarissa Lynch is going to continue her open hearth cooking and living history demonstrations, which she does twice a month throughout the year. And this year we've stabilized our building we refer to as the slave cabin. For the first time, visitors can actually go in there, and we have got an exhibit that uses period artifacts from the Smith Plantation that talk about the various aspects of a slave's life. So everybody come out and visit us.
Thank you, Chuck.
Good evening. I'm Sally Hansel, member of the Roots Committee, and I'd like to call your attention to a very special project on Canton Street that celebrates Roswell's African American history. There is a large billboard-sized photo mural on the side of Go With The Flow. Right in the heart of Canton Street, it shows a family portrait that was taken in the late 19th century, 1895, of 6 African-American children, one of whom was Rosalie Brown Strickland, who came to live on Webb Street from 1945 until she died in 1975. She was the mother of Mamie Strickland Cotton, who was the caretaker and resident at the Smith Plantation. And she also is the grandmother of Charles Grogan, whom you may have heard is working on a book about Roswell's African American history. Charles said that she was known as Ma, M.A., to everyone, and that she cooked a fabulous deep dish blackberry pie and was a seamstress and made dresses for women in the community. And this project is sponsored by a nonprofit called Roar, Roswell Arts Renaissance. Hope you'll check it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Robert Weinberger. I'm the coordinator at Barrington Hall. And we will be having an exhibit all month long called By Skilled Hands, which are objects from the collection that were made by enslaved craftsmen. One of the most important pieces we have is a large pottery jar from Edgefield, South Carolina. It was both thrown and decorated by slave craftsmen. So that's ours. And then on Saturday, February 21st from 11 to 4, we have the West African Rhythms and Flavors. We'll have a Gullah cook from Savannah, Sally Ann Robinson, coming up. She is the author of 3 cookbooks now. And we'll be sampling some great food. And then on the lawn out front, we'll be having the drum circle, which is always a lot of fun. So come out and have some free stuff. I think she's promising fried ribs this year. So.
Great.
And on behalf of some of the other committee members who aren't present, I'll just bring your attention to a couple of new events. Well, we did have another film which has already been shown at Aurora. It was called Through a Lens Darkly, and it's about the history of photography of the African American community. And we had a first-time bid whist party at the East Roswell Recreation Center, and it sold out. They sold 90 tickets. They had to turn 30 people away. It was a great time. They had a ball. And we also had, I think, very close, if not, a sold-out house Saturday night at the Cultural Arts Center for Ruthie Foster. It was a fabulous concert. She's a third-time Grammy nominee. She literally got up at 5 o'clock yesterday morning to fly out to L.A. Sadly, she did not win her Grammy, but she gave us a fabulous show. And tonight, starting right now, we've got the Story Slam going on over at the Cultural Arts Center. You mentioned the pound cake cook-off. Instead of the cornbread, we're doing pound cake, and for whatever reason, a lot more people want to show off their pound cake, so we have like 21 entries this time, and I think maybe we've had 12 on the cornbread in the past. Of course, we have our poetry slam, and then we'll be ending the month with the Unity concert on Saturday afternoon, the 28th at Zion. And finally, after 14 years of trying, we are going to be having a quartet from the Morehouse Glee Club as our special featured guest there. So please join us. Thank you.
Let's have a hand for the Roots Festival. February, an otherwise bleak month, is enlivened by this Roots Festival. I encourage y'all to at least turn out for one event. They're all great. My favorite is the Poetry Slam and the Unity Festival, which I call the Battle of the Choirs. But it's always great music. So those two I can definitely endorse. So I hope you'll turn out. Which brings us to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the oh, wait a minute. Yes, the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Councilmember Price. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember DePolito. Does anybody have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. For the record, Councilmember Wynn and Councilmember Orleans are absent tonight. Kay Love, are you going to be calling the Community Development Calendar? So, Councilmember Eichelhart, you're first on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the recognition of the City of Roswell's receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the FY 2014 budget from the Government Finance Officers Association. Mr. Lee will present that, please.
Thank you, Councilmember Eichelhart. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have before you tonight is the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. This is the 11th year that this city has received the award, and certainly demonstrates the city's commitment to excellence in budgeting, which is what this award is about. This is the highest form of budget recognition in the country. What this reward tells us is that Mayor and Council, as well as staff, is committed to the budget as a policy document, as a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. Interesting enough, the panel that reviewed our budget this year actually gave an additional recognition as outstanding as a communications device. So thank you all for your continued support for the budget process, and congratulations.
Let's have a hand for the Budget Department. They did a great job. Which brings us to Community Development Department. Kay Love will be calling that calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is RZ2014-04021, 9600 Nesbitt Ferry Road, the Providence Group, LLC. Mr. Townsend, this item was deferred from the January 12th meeting.
Thank you, Kay. This application was deferred. They are requesting amendment of conditions on a rezoning for 2007. We received late this afternoon a request from the applicant in conjunction with an agreement with the Homeowners Association to defer this application for another 30 days to the March 9th, 2015.
Is anyone here in the audience tonight come down to be heard on this matter, on the Nesbitt Ferry Road, Nesbitt Lakes rezoning? All right. There will be, I anticipate, a motion for a deferral, there'll be an opportunity for you to be heard on that motion, and again, if it's deferred, it'll be coming back on the calendar in a month. So, we've got some folks here on that. Mr. Rollator, you want to report on the reason for the request for deferral?
I'm Don Rollator, 1865 Lockaway Drive, Suite 601, Alpharetta, Georgia. I represent the Providence Group of Georgia, the applicant. The Providence Group and several interested parties held a meeting last Friday morning in City Hall to discuss the resolution of all of the conditions of zoning on this matter. As a result of that meeting between Mr. Jolly, homeowners representatives, and members from the city staff and city council, it was agreed that the hearing tonight would be deferred until March the 9th so that these conditions could be worked out in full. That is the reason for the deferral request. It is a joint effort. That's why we're here.
Are you optimistic that there will be a resolution between the property owner and the homeowners association?
Reading this, yes, sir, I am.
Does the council have any questions, Mr. Rollator? Thank you, Mr. Rollator.
Thank you.
Councilmember Price.
I don't know if it's for Mr. Rollator or anyone else who might have the answer, but I'm just curious, the ruling that Fulton County is about to do, or whenever it gets to deciding that easement, does that have any bearing if you come back before that is ruled upon? Are we going to still not be able to make a determination from our end?
I don't think that the Fulton County issue has any real bearing on this matter. If someone on the council has a different feeling, I'd listen to hear their opinion.
Any other questions for Mr. Rollator?
Mr. Jolly has.
If the party working a neighborhood agreement, that lawsuit would be dropped and it will settle the lawsuit along with the neighborhood agreement. So there won't be any pending litigation if we work out a neighborhood agreement.
All right. What is the council's pleasure? Do we defer it here tonight? Councilmember Price. Motion to defer by Councilmember Price. Is there a date in which you are deferring this to?
The date that they requested, March 9th.
Motion to defer until March 9th by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. So, if you'd like to be heard on whether this should be deferred tonight or not, we'll hear from the audience. Does anyone wish to speak to the deferral? Yes, sir, come forward. If you'll give us your name and address. I think I recognize this gentleman first, and then we'll recognize you next.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors. It's happened again. The whole part of this development also backs Woodfall. We have been ignored in all discussions that have been between Providence about this matter. If it's deferred, when are we likely to put our point of view and our concerns forward, please?
There will be another opportunity when it's deferred to put your points forward.
Will we be included in any other discussions or meetings that are to be carried out? Because we haven't been included in any up to now.
I think you need to address that to Mr. Rollator or to the... Mr. Rollator, who are you negotiating with as far as homeowners association? Is there a representative of Nesbitt Lakes Homeowners Association here tonight?
They all are.
Well, I would contact them or Mr. Rollator to be included in those discussions. Well, if those are between the parties. As far as the city is concerned, if the motion to defer passes tonight, it'll be coming back in March. Okay. And there'll be a full public hearing at that time.
Okay, I'm still surprised that we haven't been contacted in the past, I'll be honest with you, and so are everybody that borders on and is affected by this development. Okay? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir, come forward.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Robert Stein with Laziga Johansson, representing the Nesbitt Lakes Homeowners Association. With me, Ray Wright, member of the board of directors, and I'll turn it over to Ray.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and city council members. We, the members of the Nesbit Lake subdivision who are here tonight, if they would stand, that are representing our development, we do concur with the Providence Group in that we've been having some significant conversations with them to work towards having an agreement. We feel very good about the progress that we've made, and that we do concur with the deferral until March the 9th.
Thank you, sir. I would like to compliment all the parties that are working to for a settlement on this. It is a complicated matter. It involves litigation and easements and multiple parties, and we do appreciate everyone's efforts to work this out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else wishes to be heard? Back to council. The public hearing is closed on the deferral. If this passes, there will be another public hearing when it comes back. So we have a motion and a second for deferral. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Passes unanimously. Hope to see you back in. I hope it's worked out. But there will be a public hearing regardless of what's worked out, because everyone may not be involved, and the council still needs to take a vote. So, but I do hope that we're very close if we don't have a resolution, and our job's easier.
Next item is ours.
We're going to take not a break, but we're going to just hold off until we hear the next item, until we clear the room. So, folks, if you will clear the room and then carry on your conversations once you pass through the threshold. There are several more people here who have business to conduct tonight. What's this guy's name in contact? No, let's wait till they clear the hall. If y'all will walk on out of the hall and close the doors, we'll reconvene the meeting. Who's our doorkeeper? You may call the next agenda item.
Thank you. RZ 2014-04026 and CV 2014-04029, 73 Woodstock Road. Steve Rockland. This item was deferred at the January 12th meeting.
Thank you, Kay. We have actually 4 items together that are right on Woodstock Road. Staff is going to make a kind of joint presentation. They are at 73 Woodstock, 84 Woodstock, 86 Woodstock, and 88 Woodstock. Item number 6 on your agenda this evening actually has been withdrawn by the applicant, so that item will not be presented this evening. It's been withdrawn by the application. There are 4 properties in this location. The 4 properties are all zoned RS12. The applicant is requesting an OP Office Park designation. This is an aerial map. The 4 areas outlined in black are the 4 lots of this location. They're adjacent to the Young Life School. This is the current zoning map. The purple, starting at the corner of Woodstock and Canton, is downtown mixed use. The pinker color is neighborhood mixed use. The blue is office park. The dark green is the RS12. The light blue is the OP, and which is the Young Life designation. This is the current site plan and survey of the 73 Woodstock. This is required to have buffers, as you can see in the current plan of the current layout. The impervious area for the parking area was used in the past for storage. That's why it's all stabilized in that location. They would require a 40-foot buffer and landscape strip adjacent to the residential RS12 properties for this property to be rezoned to OP. This is the site plan for 84. Woodstock has the existing house and driveway. This is the site plan for 86 Woodstock. There would need to be variances to the amenity space, the OP for 20%, and the plan only shows 18%. This is the proposed plan for 88 Woodstock. 88 is a vacant lot. They are proposing a building that it looks like single-story on the front, but two-story in the rear as the property slopes away, a detention in the rear of the property, providing the 40-foot landscape buffer adjacent to the residential. The current proposal does not meet the minimum build-to zone of 50% of the lot, and the applicant is below that requirement by 6 feet for that proposed location. The Planning Commission reviewed these applications, recommended denial of the rezonings, as well as denial of the concurrent variances. Staff also recommended approval of the OP for the Woodstock locations. Staff recommended denial of the Type D buffer for 73 Woodstock. Staff recommended approval of the concurrent variances to 86 and 88 Woodstock. All the conditions are part of the individual resolutions for each of the applications. We should probably go over them one at a time when you feel appropriate dealing with the conditions of approval for each of the applications. If you have any questions.
Does the council have any questions? I see no questions.
I think I'll go back to the aerial so you can... There. Okay.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Mr. Townsend, typically we zone to a site plan. So is the applicant suggesting that the existing property, the existing conditions on the property is the site plan?
That's what he's recommending, yes, except for 88 Woodstock, which is a vacant parcel.
So there is no site plan for 88 Woodstock?
88 does include a site plan in your backup material.
Oh, I misunderstood you. So it's currently vacant, but there is a site plan?
Right. This is the proposed site plan in your backup material.
All right. As far as, I didn't see in any of the staff recommendations reference to a site plan. Typically, it says revised plans, but that's not the way we ordinarily would do that. We would zone to a site plan if we approved something. So I was just trying to clarify what the intent was. Is the intent to zone it to the existing conditions?
Yeah, I believe that's what the applicant is requesting, yes.
So under each of these, you outlined on this particular one where there's suggested improvements, but there's some additional variances. So on the existing site plans on the other properties, are there any variances required on each of those properties, or do they meet the requirements under OP, which would include parking and
73
detention and so forth?
73, as an existing site plan, does not meet any of the 40-foot buffer requirements adjacent to the RS-12. He's asking it to be zoned to this plan and to the existing buffers that exist with the existing fences. As you can see from this aerial, it has, or from this zoning map, it has RS-12 on each side and RS-18 to the north of it.
So, but the existing buffers are for the existing zoning.
For the OP, he's requesting that the existing plan be what the buffers would be.
So that would require a variance then?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the concurrent variance to the Type D buffer?
Correct.
So those buffers would be reduced from, 40 feet?
Yes.
Down to?
Some cases 10 or less.
Okay. Can we go through this exercise on each of the properties, just so we understand this a little bit better?
Yep.
74 you said was withdrawn. I guess 84 would be the next one.
Yes. Has an existing house.
Okay. So is there sufficient parking if that became office?
Yes.
Okay. And it meets the buffer requirements?
Except for the driveway which exists adjacent to the property line. And there is I believe there's a shed in the back 40-foot buffer.
Now, that's adjacent to OP. So
Yes.
what is the buffer requirement between OP and OP?
None.
No. So it wouldn't...
It's only on the rear where the 40-foot is required.
So the driveway is okay.
Right.
Okay. Now, to change the zoning, if we're changing the use, do we then need to bring all the stormwater up to code and water quality, detention, and so forth?
If they're adding impervious and required for parking and things of that nature, yes.
But in this particular case, they would not be, they're just changing the zoning and just using the building for an office use.
Correct.
And if they change the building, they would have to come in again for another zoning, which essentially is a site plan change.
Right.
So in order to zone this to OP, they would not need to do any on-site improvements?
I don't believe so.
Good. Right, so the driveway would need to be brought up to standards. We could go to the next one.
86.
So does this have sufficient parking?
Yes.
And as far as the buffers on either side of this,
If the others are zoned OP, there wouldn't be any. It's only the rear of the 40 feet.
okay. And there again, if there aren't any changes to the property, there's no additional requirements for stormwater and so forth.
Right.
And if there are any changes to the building, they'd have to come in another time.
Right.
Okay.
This is 88.
So this would
The new
also require adjacent parcel to be zoned OP
Right.
and not have the buffer requirement.
Correct.
And what about the buffer between, is that OR and OP?
Right. There is no buffer requirement
buffer.
between the OP and the OR.
And this one seems to have significantly more parking, so that's why I was asking about the parking on the other ones. It seemed like there was very little parking.
Bigger square footage of building, 2 stories.
Okay. All right. Last question that's related to this bit, not specific to the request. On Downtown House that we have along Canton Street, that allows for adaptive reuse of houses to be used as commercial, or they could be used as residential. If this were to be Downtown House, could we zone to Downtown House outside of the historic district? Because I know we use the downtown districts within the historic district. But is that
Yes, you
feasible?
can. Yes, you can do that. It was your policy directed to staff that only the downtown districts would be used in the historic area.
Right.
Some of the discussion related to the using this as adaptive reuse, we have a building type that is a commercial house in the OP. If we restrict this type of development to the downtown or to the building type of commercial house, you get that same end result of using that district in the OP instead of rezoning it to the downtown house.
So it'd be, okay, so it'd be OP as requested with commercial house as a building type.
Correct.
So does that mean they could only use the existing structure? How does that work?
They can only use the existing structure that in which the 3 lots exist, and they are tying the 4th lot, our house doesn't exist, to the site plan and elevations that are being proposed.
Okay. That's helpful because this house has a mix of residential and commercial, and be interesting to see what folks think about that as an option.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. On 73 and 84, I understand that they remain as residences and then potentially be used more as an OP sometime in the future. And I understand from what you just said, the reasoning, I suppose, is to have the buffer reductions to similar type. But I guess I'm a little concerned that, are we moving towards, having rezonings for some future use as opposed to what we generally do of the specific use that is intended at the time?
Correct.
So we are moving towards that, or that at least certainly is the case in this instance?
That is what is being requested by the applicant, yes.
Good. That would be my concern, that we generally don't do that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Price.
I know how important it is to get all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, and there's a lot to consider here, but I noticed a couple of things in the paperwork that were a little inconsistent. There are several places where Lot 86 is referred to as Lot 88, which is not surprising because the mailbox actually says 88, but it's actually Lot 86. And 88 is referring to an existing structure, and of course there is not one.
Correct.
And then regarding 74, it was indicated that there was a request for it to go from RS-12 to OP, when in fact it's currently OP, and it doesn't matter because it's been withdrawn.
It's withdrawn, correct.
But the fact that it's withdrawn, and it seems to indicate that somebody somewhere thought it was already RS-12.
No.
Well, somebody did, because it's right here in my packet.
Correct, and it was written in error by the applicant. It has been withdrawn.
No, it's a Roswell-generated document, City of Roswell. That's why I was concerned. Of course, his letter makes it very clear what he wants it to revert to. Anyway, I just want to make sure that that document that's in here is not given any sort of credence as to make confusion in the future, because it's currently OP, or whatever it is, O something.
Right.
And not residential, although I kind of wish it were, but that's neither here nor there. And there was something else. What was it? Oh, yes, because Lot 88's requesting a concurrent variance to the building, but there actually is no building. So it's kind of hard to request that when there's no building there. So I guess it's a little confusing. I mean, I had to actually go walk it to make sure I had all my numbers straight, because something didn't seem right. And anyway, I live just around the corner, so it wasn't a long walk, but just the same, it was a little disconcerting to see the confusion about what is currently and what might be and what won't be, and what, of course, now that 74 is withdrawn, I guess it's not an issue at all. Can you show us in the OP, like the usage, what are the potential usages, since we're not going to condition this to anything, or are we? Or would we?
So OP is the second line in. So the first permitted use is hospice.
And that could happen without any action of council.
If zoned OP and they meet the criteria for parking and the state regulations, yes.
So we would never see it again.
Right.
Okay?
College, nonprofit service organizations, public use, conservation area, parks, recreation fields up to 2 acres, reservoir, limited use, cell towers, minor utilities.
Wait, back up to that limited use cell tower. What does that mean? That means it would come back to council, or there's other criteria?
All telecommunication towers, I believe the limited use requires them to come back to city council in that designation.
So it's not a C because...
The limitation deals with section 943B, which all telecommunication towers, any structure that is designed and constructed primarily for the purpose of supporting one or more antennas, including self-supporting towers, does not include any structure erected solely for residential, non-commercial individual use, such as television antennas, satellite dishes, or amateur radar antennas. The use standard is where a telecommunication tower is allowed as a limited use. It is subject to the requirements of Article 21.2, Standards for Wireless Communication in the City Code.
So that's an administrative decision?
No, that comes back to council.
Comes back to council.
Right.
So telecommunication tower could not go there unless it came back to council again?
Correct.
Okay, and you were getting ready to go to the next page?
Medical uses, office uses, call centers, radio, television, trade, overnight lodging, bed and breakfast, boutique hotel, 7 to 30. Commercial parking is a conditional use. Remote parking is limited. Personal service is limited. Restaurants are limited. Retail sales are limited.
Hold on just a second. You're going a little too fast for me. And maybe everybody else. Okay, back to parking. Commercial parking. What does that mean? I mean, it could, like, what, be a valet station or something? Or?
Commercial parking, a facility that provides parking as a principal use on the site. A fee may or may not be charged. They have use standards. As a conditional use, they have to have A and B type buffers along abutting the ground floor residential. All surface parking areas abutting a public street must be screened using the screening options in Section 10. All parking areas in a parking structure must meet Section 10.1.15. So there are use standards for the parking of commercial cars. Correct, it could be a valet lot.
And then how's that distinguished from the remote parking?
Remote parking is a facility that provides a principal use that is used to meet off-site parking provisions. The remote parking is allowed as a limited use is subject to remote parking facility located within a specific distance of the principal use to be served. The remote parking facility must be located in the same or more intense zoning district as the principal use. Take, for example, a more intense use and less intense use if a church was choosing to use a more commercial area for its parking. It has buffer requirements and the same requirements for surface and structured parking as the commercial area. Do you want me to continue through the
Yeah, I'm wondering, in the category of all personal service, what is all personal service? I know the two exceptions mentioned there, but what could be there as a personal, what are things that are included in the category of personal service? Are we talking massage parlors or?
Yes.
We are. Ooh.
Animal care, beauty hair and care, catering, cleaning establishments, funeral homes, locksmiths, optometrists, repair for appliance, tailors and upholsterers, tattoo parlors and body piercing, taxidermy, tutoring, wedding chapels. Wish me to go through the rest of the list?
Okay, but it says, so it says except as listed below, then animal care is got a dash, so does that mean that
it's not permitted at all?
So it's not an exception, it's not permitted?
Not permitted at all.
Okay.
Correct.
And then restaurants could be there?
With the limitation, correct.
And the same thing with retail sales?
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of art galleries could not be there?
Correct.
Oh, so we can have a massage parlor but not an art gallery. Great. That's the Roswell I like to see, yeah. And we can't have a pawn shop. And we can't have a title shop. Or car leasing, etc. Okay, is there another page?
Distillery, light manufacturing, research and development, accessory uses, donation bins, farmers markets, gardens, greenhouse, conditionally helicopter landing pad, outdoor storage is limited, outdoor storage general is not permitted, parking on site is permitted, solar panels and swimming pools is, solar panels and swimming pools are limited use.
Any more questions, Councilman Price?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Do any other council members have any questions for staff? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
A follow-up to what Mr. Dippolito said before, that if we did change to OP but had the restrictions, conditions to remain in the, what we said before about the downtown house type things, are all those uses that we just went through would be allowed in that structure? So, okay.
Any other questions for staff? Councilmember Dippolito.
Thank you. I guess just to finish that thought, I understand from Mr. Davidson that if we did pursue that route of just limiting the building type, then somebody couldn't actually use it as a residence. It was not an either-or because residence is not allowed in that. Is that correct, Mr. Davidson?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that think finishes that discussion. Thank you.
My name is Steve Rockland. I live at 73 Woodstock Road. I'm also the owner of SAR & Associates. We're a general contractor here in the Roswell area. I'd like to thank staff tonight and the city staff for doing all the work they've done on this and even coming up with the approval of this being zoned correctly to OP. First thing I'm going to show you is a document that's dated June 27th, 2013. This council and mayor, do you recognize that? This document? This is the map that was mailed out and sent to everybody along Woodstock Road for the original zoning, from changing everything from residential to NX that staff came up with. I'm going to read a line from the very bottom of this document. If you are satisfied with the suggested conservation of your property to the category that you now will receive, you do not need to do anything. This basically told me you were going to change the property from residential to NX, and I didn't need to do anything. I could just stand back and wait for it to be taking place. No notification was remailed to me like this. I didn't get another map like this. The map that was sent out said just like this. Zoning with additional rights under the new Unified Development Code. That's what the city sent to me in the mail. That's what I got. This is a list of the parcels that were going to get rezoned to NX or to CX or IX. The ones that are outlined in green, the three you see are 88, 73, and 84. 79 is my next door neighbor. When she saw the rezoning signs go up, she thought I'd gotten crazy because she thought we'd already been rezoned to NX. She wasn't even aware that the zoning never went through, because she never received anything else from the city in the mail. So this document gets us to where we are tonight. And the reason we're here tonight is partially because of this document, because I let the zoning meetings go on and everything that city did and never came in here because I was really never notified. There were some signs up and stuff. I really wasn't paying attention to it because of how busy I was. So basically, this is the crux of where we're at. We have paperwork that was sent out and mailed. Told me don't do anything if I'm satisfied with being NX. This will lead up to where we are now. That's the map you saw earlier that the city put out. You can see 73, 79 is next door. That's Virginia Gann. She's also, when I was going to get the rezoning done, she couldn't afford putting up $1,000 to get the rezoning done. So she didn't go forward, and that's the lady that I said, thought we'd already been rezoned to NX. If you count the buildings along Woodstock from the corner of Canton to North Coleman, we may not like it, some people may not like it, but what you see there's 4 residents that want to stay in those residences. There's a lady past the school, there's the new house that's being built that's overshadowing the house in the back, and Mrs. Coleman's residence that's in orange next door to 73 Woodstock. There are currently 14 properties that are either zoned NX or OP along that street. There are 3 of us here tonight. The parishes, you stand up, Tom, Carol. They just recently put their property on the market because they're tired of the traffic and all the other stuff and living next door to a parking lot where there's cars and stuff. The rest of the street feels mostly the same way. Sue Rockland's here tonight. She owns 86 and 88. Miss Price, the reason we got to 86 and 88, we did a divisional plat. So the old house was moved because we couldn't go forward with the addresses because the school is 90 Woodstock. we had to go backwards with the addresses. So 84 left 86 with the current house that's there, and 88 became the vacant lot. Does that make sense on the addresses?
Well, that's in a numerical sequence, but right now the mailbox on 86 says 88.
We just didn't take the numbers off of it. If you look on the sign that's in front of it, there's 86 and 88 on both that sign to try and make sure everybody understands what's going on. Anyway, we have 14 properties that are zoned OP or NX. On the north side of the street, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 are all NX. The vacant lot's not been rebuilt on by the Colemans because they know what's going on the street. Across the street, if you take the 3 of us that are here tonight in the 4 lots, that would be 18 people that want to be OP or NX. And you take the lot that's 79 that's vacant next to 14, that would be 19 out of 23 properties. So you're going to tell me that there's 4 residents that overshadow what was really going on the street? That's really not how it's supposed to be. And I'm hearing all this stuff about what we're going to do and how we're going to do certain things. I'm going to show you the renderings that were sent into the city. I think you probably have them in your package. This first is 86. Can we shoot that down? What we've done here is that residence that was there, we've just taken and had the architect draw a nicer craftsman-style rendering. The footprint for the building stays exactly the same. It's basically a small office that 3 or 4 people could occupy. There are 7 parking spots on that piece of property. There is a stormwater detention shown in the front. And all we've done is take that and keep with the original structure that's there and move that forward and make it a lot nicer, cabin-style, cottage-style, what fits the street, not like the house that's being built right now. And basically what we've done there is modernize it and bring it up to date so that it can be an office space that a lot of people that want to work in downtown will want to work there and live close by also. That's what's proposed for what used to be 86, but now is, what was 88, which is now going to be 86 Woodstock. And the property is approximately 1,800 square feet. I think, Mr. DiPolito, you were asking, there's the parking that's a little bit easier to see on this copy. There are 3 spots in the front, handicap, and 2 to the side, and there are 4 to the rear that you can see back there. And basically, we have left this structure completely intact, the footprint, the foundation, and all. We've just cleaned it up, modernized it, and what's proposed there, if we get the OP zoning, we'll bring in the building plans and have it brought in front of council or in front of the building department to see. We're not here to change the street or what's on the street. We're not here to put in massage parlors. I've been in Roswell for a long, long time. And I can guarantee you that this building will stay just like it is, and somebody will come along that's in that type of building that wants it for an office. Next, this is the elevation that was proposed for 88. This is next to the Young Life school and daycare. It actually fits what's already on Canton Street. It's really a story and a half with a full basement. It's about 4,500 square feet total, counting the basement. The building can be adjusted. This was a rendering that was done by the architect to give council some idea of what we're trying to get there and what we want to do to get approved and stuff. Very much looks like Pug's old house over on Canton Street. This is another one of the things that we came up with, because in the rezoning for OP next to the school, we did show, actually the site plan, and I'll show you that, has full water detention because there's a major water problem between 86 and 88. We've shown underground storage for it. We've shown that we will take care of the water problem so that it doesn't go to Nancy Circle or back to those areas anymore. We'll try and help the water problem with the school. We understand fully well just like we did over at Q-Care 2 years ago. We piped all their water off of the city's soccer fields and stuff to take care of it and get it off and running across everybody's properties. We're very due diligent about how we're going to handle every one of these properties, and we're not going to make the mistake of creating a problem for somebody else. And with the engineering department and public works and stormwater here that we work with continually every day, every week here in the city, the engineers will get it to the point where it's right. There won't be a question as to what we bring forward and what we're trying to present. This is the site plan for 88. The building, they need to be tweaked a little bit so that it meets all the right variances and our right buffers and stuff. We put all the 40-foot buffers in. When we went to the neighborhood meeting, we heard everybody's voice. We were going to try and reduce the buffers to get more parking and bigger buildings in. We put all the 40-foot buffers in the rear here so that there was no question about that. We knew we were rezoning all the properties together so there would be no buffers continually along the sides of them, because OP to OP there would be 5 in a row, counting Ari Cohn's office, the parish's house, 86 and 88 Woodstock, and then you would have the school next. It all kinds of fits together in a puzzle. If you look at the rear of this, that's about a $70,000 stormwater detention area that's back there behind the parking and stuff to gather all the water, and it's also in a concrete cylinder so that it's not going to be an eyesore. It'll be self-maintaining, and it will be engineered so that when it drains out, it'll run out at a normal rate that's possible to keep the flooding from the back from happening. We concur with planning and the staff, and really I think everything we've tried to propose for 86 and 88 building-wise is within what we're looking for to go along with the rest of the OP and NX that's down that street. If you take what we're accounting there, if you've got 19 properties that are OP or NX, and there's only 4 residents left, it's really not a residential street, as much as people may want it to be. So I have 3 homeowners here with me tonight, and I don't know how many there are left, but there's only 4 other houses on Woodstock that could possibly have a homeowner here representing that part of the Woodstock tonight. I think what we've shown you so far with the 2 elevations, the houses, the size of the buildings, the 2 site plans show that we have done our due diligence. We turned in what was necessary, and I think before going forward, if there's anything that the city council wants to put in there about limiting massage parlors or cell towers or any of those type things, we would accept those conditions. We're looking for small, eclectic rental properties for office space. You want to eliminate restaurants? We're good with eliminating restaurants. And I can sympathize with people in the area, but that end of Woodstock now is no longer a residential street. As much as you want to say it is, it's not. Not when you've got Cuban restaurants that you can hear the music playing at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday or Saturday night. When you've got other rezoning that's going on and stuff for where HP is, that's going to where Vickers and stuff is going on. When we're only 300, 400 yards from those places, this section of Woodstock has now become office, professional. The only question we have, and one question we have, is about the sidewalks on the south side of the street. It requires 4 telephone poles to be moved for the sidewalks to be put in. We have no problem to put the sidewalks in and doing what's necessary. But I talked to Brian Kennedy from Georgia Power, and he gave me an estimate of between $45,000 and $60,000 because of how big the poles are and what's on them and what we would have to do to move those. There's a full sidewalk on the other side of the street. 73 Woodstock's been asked to make that a 5-foot sidewalk, but that sidewalk runs from Canton Street past the elementary school up about 9/10 of a mile, and it's all 4 foot wide So unless you get somebody else that's going to make a 5-foot sidewalk, you're going to have 120 feet of 5-foot sidewalk and almost a mile of 4-foot sidewalk. I'm going to go to 73 Woodstock for a couple minutes to try and clarify some of the things there. I think with 84, 86, and 88, all the buffers are met. If it's all OP, there's no side buffers that are needed. The parking has been shown on the 2 properties that are ready to be go to construction with approved plans. The parishes who have been here 47 years have just put their house on the market for the reasons I told you. The school, the traffic, they've got all offices around them and stuff, and it's time for them to move on. And what they want to do for the best value of their property, it needs to be zoned OP so somebody else can come along and give you a site plan and get approval of those plans. And that can be made a condition of this meeting tonight also. We can put in there, the council can put in there, I'm sure Mr. Davidson can agree, that if we have to, before we can build a building, or it can be changed from residence to office professional, there can be a condition put in there that the plans have to be brought back in front of council. I'm going to show you 73 Woodstock. For 73 Woodstock to meet the buffer in the back, there's only about 55 feet from the back porch and the back deck on the house that's there. I've owned it for 15 years. Before that, Kevin Caldwell had it for about 8 years. So for 24 years, there's been gravel parking in the back. I guess the reason being is it probably has the nicest landscaping on the street. This is the front landscaping of 73 Woodstock. That's the gravel driveway leading up to it. There's a giant Japanese maple in the front. This is a view of the from the other direction, looking at 73 Woodstock with the green grass in the front. So if we don't want to issue a variance to the back, I guess the parking would end up being in the front, and you'd have another parking lot right on Woodstock. This is the back area of 73 Woodstock. Here's the fencing that's already in place. From the fencing down to the gravel area, there is 10 feet all the way around. That's the buffer we're asking for. We're willing to plant 12, 14-foot Leland cypresses or whatever Andy from the arborist at the city will recommend to give the green buffer that's necessary. I'm standing there in front of the fence. I'm approximately 6 foot tall. That fence is at least 4 foot taller than me. You can't see the residents on that side, nor can they see me. This is looking in the other direction. There's one of the outbuildings that's been existing there for 25 years. You can see the other residence, which is 79 Woodstock, that she is the one I told you couldn't afford to go into the rezoning. There's plenty of property on that side. This is the parking facility that I have, or garage or carport that's there right now, that's been on the facility for a long time. And that's where I park the cars. You've got to pull around back to park to get the cars off the front of the lot. And here's another view of the east side with the fencing and stuff. Some of the adjacent properties that are zoned NX and OP, who didn't have to go through this, this is 91 Woodstock. There are no buffers. The parking is directly up against the residentials that are on Fowler Avenue. This is the back of that. The cars are parked 10 feet from the back of the building. Parking for the school, 10-foot buffer from the side of that vacant lot that's supposed to be residential because it was existing. Gravel parking behind the hair salon that's zoned NX. Here's the Cuban restaurant. behind the Cuban restaurant is zoned residential, and the parking lot runs right back to the fence. There's not 5 feet between it and the house that's behind it. These are just some of the examples of what's already existing on the street. I just wanted to bring those forward so you can actually get a feel for what's going on. Again, like I said, the north side of the street is all NX except for 3 houses, 2 of which want to be switched, mine and there with that, for 73 Woodstock. You can see at 73 Woodstock the fencing that's in place. There's really nobody seeing each other from what's going on back there. Cars can't see, you can't see over the fence in any direction to see where the cars and stuff are. That's why we asked for that, that buffer to be reduced to 10 feet. I'm sure the people that are here tonight, like I said, there's only 4 other residents besides myself and the people that are living on the street now that are asking for OP. I'm sure they're upset. You can't make everybody happy, and things do change. And they're going to tell us that that's a tree-lined canopy coming down Woodstock Road and stuff, when in essence, when I stand at my mailbox, I see signs that say AKA Architects. I see Taylor Hair Salon. The lights are burning on that sign until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And that's the things you see from the parish's mailbox, too. There's the view from the mailbox at 84 Woodstock. You're standing in front of the mailbox. You can see two signs that are already out there for OP properties. I don't think that makes that residence, very attractive to somebody to be sitting right next door to signs that are sitting right there 50 feet from their driveway. There's the view from 73 looking at Taylor, directly across the street. And the sign from the architect is even closer than that. Here's the sign that's the sign lit up the other night from Young Life down the street. So it's not like the view is so pristine that you're going to be not seeing any signs or anything else. The OP is what belongs there. It's 15 years ago the street didn't have 14,000 cars a day driving up and down it. So it does make a difference in how we view that. We have the plans that we've shown you tonight. We're trying to keep it village-like. We're trying to keep it eclectic. We're not trying to go in here. As I said, we will take conditions that you can put upon us to keep that office professional, keep them small and eclectic. We're not looking for huge properties. These properties are going to stay in my family. I have no plans to sell them. My kids were born and raised in this town. I've been here for 33, 34 years. I pulled my first building permit in this town in 1979. I've been coming in front of mayor and council since 1979. I think our reputation for what we've done in the city, what we build, and how we do it, precedes where we are today. And actually, asking for OP, we made the concession to go from NX to OP because we heard the neighbors, we heard what staff had to say, and we thought it was the right thing. We're not looking for restaurants. We're not looking for massage parlors. We're looking for what's already on the street and what the majority of the street already is. So anybody that wants to tell you that the majority of the street's residential and it's turning back to that, it's not going to happen. With that, I'll turn it over to the opposition.
Before you sit down, let me see if the council has any questions.
That's fine.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Rockland? Councilmember Price.
So why does NX not work for you?
Well, NX gives you restaurants and has a much broader range. If that's where you end up, NX would be fine too, but I think from Al's perspective at Young Life, he's worried about bed and breakfast and restaurants and drinking next door to a school when you got people coming in and out of there. And I kind of agree with that. I think that that's not the appropriate thing. We would limit this and not have bed and breakfast on here either. We originally brought out a bed and breakfast plan that we thought was really nice because we thought it would be good for downtown, but maybe the location at 88 Woodstock wasn't the appropriate spot with 300 kids next door every day.
But doesn't NX allow someone to live in the building?
Brad?
But OP does not allow anyone to live in...
I don't understand how the zoning works on some of these things. The categories, to me, are so broad and need to be much more simplified.
It just seems to me like if they look like houses, to restrict them from not being residential doesn't seem wise.
Well, I agree, because I want to stay in mine for 5 more years. I have a son in law school that's going to be graduating, needs to get some practice under his belt before I can turn that over to him.
So if this went OP, you'd have to move out.
Well, that's why we asked for a conditional use for 3 or 4 or 5 years. The same thing for the parishes. They want to live there until their house sells. It's on the market currently, but it won't sell because half the house was knocked down in the storm 2 years ago, and it's not fixable right now. They went through a very bad situation with a builder that embezzled a bunch of money from them and stuff, and I feel terrible, but they can't fix the house back the way it needs to be to sell it as a residence, and therefore the best sales position for them is to have it either OP or NX.
Thanks.
Other questions for Mr. Rockland? I see no questions. You'll have an opportunity for rebuttal after heard from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If you'd like to speak on this, if you'll give me your name, if you'll come forward, give me your name and your address, we'll hear from you. Yes, sir. If you'd like to speak after this gentleman, if you'll move to the front row, we can move faster.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, thanks for this opportunity to talk to you. My name is Al Hansen. I and my family own Young Life Academy on 90 Woodstock Road. We built our first building on that property in 1976. I almost said 1776. 1976. You're going to hear from Mr. Keating. Kim and David are real neighborhood advocates, and they've done a great job of organizing the opposition and also bringing this matter to everybody's attention. David's going to bring you a petition with 400 names on it. I wanted to challenge that because I signed a petition, a lot of my family signed a petition, a lot of my staff signed a petition, and we had a lot of our customers signed a petition because we're against commercial zoning, we're against the annex. We're a school zone, there's not supposed to be any alcohol within 100 yards of a school. So we were against that, and but now that's been withdrawn. We've had a compromise here, and now they're asking for OP, which we can support. And the reason I'm supporting OP because what Mr. Rockland's doing here takes care of some of our neighborhood problems. We have had a problem with water forever. Right now we have a ditch down the side of our property that runs back, and in a real heavy storm, I've seen 6 inches of water on our neighbor's yard right up to our house. And this is something that we haven't been able to take care of. We have a problem with sidewalks. They just end at the end of our property and you walk off a cliff. And then the other thing is we have, this is a neighborhood. We're talking about the parishes who have been here forever, and Steve Rockland's lived in the neighborhood for 15 years. These are our neighbors, and they're not, developers with black hats who are out here trying to, destroy the neighborhood. People ask about the siding on, I don't know what it is now, I guess it's 86 Woodstock Road. Well, the reason there's no siding on that house is because Mr. Rockland took it off because it was asbestos. He had to get these guys out there with white uniforms to take this off. So that's why it's so unsightly at this time. But I think we just have an opportunity here to control this matter, because I'm concerned what happens if we don't is that, we're going to be going to court. We have somebody, Mr. Rockland, who wants to spend upwards of $75,000 to control the water on this property. We have somebody who wants to build sidewalks on this property so you can get from North Coleman down to Canton Street. He's willing to put a 40-foot buffer in the back of the property. We know what the design review board is going to do as far as trees are concerned. He probably doesn't know how many trees he's going to plant, but he's going to plant a bundle. And, it doesn't take long. It seems like it takes forever, but trees grow very fast. We've planted 1 million of them, it seems like. I just think this is a tremendous answer to solving this problem, because, again, we have the engineering department who's going to be overlooking this water problem. And my experience is with, this is all spot zoning along Woodstock Road. I don't see how anybody, if they went to the courts, is not going to get a ruling in their favor. Because like next to the parishes, they have OP. It'd be discrimination. You can't discriminate against somebody for, one property right next to each other. So I would like to see it go OP with the conditions, make all the conditions you want. I would like, along with the other things he was restricting, no bed and breakfasts, because my experience with bed and breakfast is that you have happy hour at 5 o'clock and there's liquor being served, which I have no problem with, but not next to my school. So anyway, my recommendation is that we all support this, that my neighbors support this. We're, we agree on most things, and we're trying to come to agreement here. But thank you for letting me come up here, people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who'd like to speak next? Let me remind folks we've got a 5-minute time limit. When you begin speaking, green light goes on at 2 minutes. There's a yellow light, and when your time's up, there's a red light. You'll give me your name and address, please.
Sure. I'm Bill Hoban. I live at 110 Fowler Avenue, and I've lived in the area for 13 years. My wife and I met on the street. She bought her house a few months before I bought mine, and we now have 2 daughters that are 6 and 9 that we just love this town. We walk to school, we walk to lunch, we walk to shop, we walk to the park. We're very active in the neighborhood, and we love it. And when I think of this neighborhood, that's exactly what I see. This is what I see. We have block parties. We have Youth Day Parade. This is Woodstock Street, by the way, if you can see that, with great canopies. We enjoy everyone. We enjoy the parishes. We're friends with everyone. We just really have enjoyed being in this neighborhood, and this neighborhood ranges from ages 2 to 96, and we have 2 new ones on the way. The area that overall, we're opposing this rezoning, obviously. We have over 600 signatures now, so now maybe it does equal 400, if there were some that signed and didn't realize what they were signing up for. But they are full-time residents. They're residents that maybe have rentals. They are people who work in the area. They're concerned with the traffic, the safety, the feel of what's going to happen if more commercial comes to this area. We have Canton Street, which is a fantastic historic corridor, but the parts of Roswell that people love are the parts that are unique, the parts that are charming, and it's this part that's leading into Canton Street. And people do, in fact, want to be here. In the last year, we've had 3 new residents or either move into their new homes or are under construction at this time, and there are more that want to come here. We have notes in mailboxes all the time of let us know when you're ready to sell. We want to be in this area. It's the walkability, it's the charm, it's the convenience. The reasons I oppose this, first and foremost, is according to the 2030 comprehensive plan, this area is suburban residential. We're zoned that now. That's what the plan is. That's why people are making an investment in the area, because that's what they believe is going to be here. The need is here to bring residential back, and at the very least, not create the opportunity for less. For me personally, I live at 110 Fowler, which is down here, so it's away from the subject properties today. But my fear is, what is the cascade effect that could ripple from this if it's approved? Then I think it's a very valid concern, because my neighbor across the street would probably be crazy not to try to get it if this is approved tonight, which would mean if I were to build a new home and invest further into the neighborhood, I would be looking most likely at the back of a parking lot or a dumpster or whatever comes with that. And I'm not the only one that has halted plans for future building or construction until we see how the results of this rezoning hearing turns out. Let's see. So, and by the way, on the housing, I forgot, I think, Mr. Mayor, you were quoted saying the overall volume of sales may be down, but that is due to a lack of supply, not demand. I think this is a great opportunity for us to create that supply to meet the demand. So I ask you to please carefully consider the negative, irreversible impacts that rezoning these properties could have and to deny this request. Thank you very much.
Who'd like to speak next? Yes, come forward.
Hi, I'm Betsy Plattenberg. I live at 54 Woodstock Road. That's a picture of my house. I'm a proud homeowner on Woodstock Road. I want to thank the council for the investment that you made in streetlights and sidewalk on Canton Street and trying to develop the area as a walkable community. I also want to thank you for the Unified Development Code, which many of us looked at very carefully before we made an investment in Roswell. And I also want to thank the Planning Commission for their unanimous rejection of this request last month. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous standing up here, so take a breath. Anyway, my husband and I looked all around before we decided to move to downtown Roswell. We looked at Inman Park, we looked at Ansley Park, we looked at Midtown, Virginia Highlands. But what we found here was a really unique combination of character, walkability in shops and restaurants, and access to great parks. We feel like we live in one of the best places in Roswell because we can walk to the park and we can walk to Canton Street, all of which we do. It's a really wonderful place to live. If you turn these areas into commercial, you can't go back. It's a really cool area with a lot of potential in these residences, and it's very special. When I drove home today and I came up Atlanta Street after I hopped off 400, I looked and all around me was vacant commercial on Atlanta Street. There's no shortage of things that are empty and kind of blighted. So I don't think that we really want to add to that when downtown Roswell is so special and has such potential, and it's transitioning back to residential. There's an awful lot of people that really want to buy in. So please give them that opportunity and help us protect the things that we love, because it's a wonderful area. Thank you.
Yes, come forward. I call this the person who raised their hand in the back first. I'll get to you in a minute. I'd recognize someone else first who raised their hand.
Thank you. My name is Janet Russell. I live at 260 Willow Springs Drive. I don't live anywhere near this road, but I go down it every day. I'm one of the citizens in this town who happens to believe that what affects you affects me. I live between the square and the river for 42 years. I've known the parishes for all those 42 years. I'm a little concerned because, as you know, Council, I come to these meetings every 2 weeks for about 40 years, and I have an excellent memory. So my concerns are the ripple effect. I remember when this council debated for over 2 hours to allow Taylor House to become a salon. They had to promise, practically slitting their wrist with blood, that it would always remain that way, because you were so afraid that the character of this street would change. The development that's going on in this town is astonishing, and I think it's very interesting. This morning I read in the New York Times that Los Angeles' neighborhoods are suffering from the same blight, which is knock down the character to build more cookie-cutter stuff to make more money for the city's coffers. I'm very concerned because this is a neighborhood, And at night, when people go home from work, and they will get in their car and drive home as much as you've provided sidewalks, because they're not going to live nearby. Within walking distance is different than walkability. Ask me. I've been asking for a sidewalk for 42 years and have been told I'm not patient enough. I couldn't walk here when I was pregnant, and I can't walk my grandchildren to the town square, and I'm still waiting. So sidewalks are an issue. At night, when people go home from work, those buildings are empty and dark. And this man that talked about his family and neighborhoods, yeah, it's really important to have a neighborhood where there's living going on at night, not dark office buildings. I don't care how small they are. My second concern is that I know in this town that we have a history of it's easier to get forgiveness than permission. Therefore, when you can't get something done, the building just magically burns down. We used to call that Italian fire insurance when I grew up. I've seen buildings burn down overnight for no reason. No one questions it. I've seen buildings that we waited to move because the city didn't want to pay for the easement, and in the process of moving a building that we couldn't get a demo permit for, it just collapses. As far as empty blight, oh, we have an abundance of it on Highway 9. It's a mess. We have 26 used car lots between Norcross Street and Holcomb Bridge. Not to mention loans on titles, bail bondsmen, auto mechanics. But we do have a beautiful streetscape now so that as you're looking for a used car, you can walk from car lot to car lot with trees that, of course, are as big as this, this microphone stem, and lamps. I would like to see the city, the UDC code, as we know, has been a disaster, and 4 citizens of this town are suing the city for improper advertising and advisement of citizens. I'm also concerned that if you approve this, even though it's been denied, there is nothing to keep one person from buying the land and making it a parcel and doing what they want with it, which would become another wonderful homogenized brick building in Roswell. You've already approved condos or townhomes across the street on Crabapple Road. They're right next to Grimes Produce almost. You've approved, I think it's 60 apartments or condos where Vickers was going to be with 120 under-the-ground parking spaces. I think it's time to say, hey, enough is enough is enough. Enough is enough. This city doesn't need to be Alpharetta or Sandy Springs. It is 165 years old, and the reason people come here is because it's, like Santa Fe calls itself, the city different. We are the city different. And I think we need to embrace what we have rather than using a bulldozer, because we can't hear the neighborhoods because the sound of the cash register's too loud.
Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
That's a hard act to follow. My name is David Fagan. My wife and I live at 36 Fowler, which is right behind Woodstock Road, and our backyard backs us. Our backyard backs up to the property on 73 Woodstock, which is one of the properties requesting a zoning variance. I'll try to be brief. Again, like many others, we wanted to move to downtown Roswell because of its unique nature. I think we've got a wonderful thing growing here. We've been residents since 1990. There's a lot of reasons why people want to come to downtown Roswell and actually want to live in downtown or near downtown Roswell. This is our house. We were fortunate enough to find a lot, one of the few remaining lots in the area. And we made an investment in the area. We did that because we wanted to live there, but also partially because of our understanding that the city wanted to keep the area residential. And we've gone from a subdivision. We lived in Edenwald, but we moved to a neighborhood, and we love our neighborhood. This is our street, Fowler Avenue. It runs from Crabapple down to Woodstock, and really is a unique blend of older and new homes. People have built new homes on the street, and there's some homes that have been there for 30 to 40 years. Heck, we have 2 barns on the street, as well as if you need to buy a large, a large mover of troops, we have that on our street as well. So it's a wonderful neighborhood. We appreciate it. We do think very strongly that changing the zoning on Woodstock Road is going to change the character of our neighborhood. I disagree with what Mr. Rockland is saying. I think there's a strong desire for residential in the neighborhood. This is something showing that basically homes within a mile of downtown Roswell have sold 66%, or actually 53% sold in less than 30 days. There aren't really properties you can find. This was a recent slide that we found. There were only 5 houses for sale close to downtown Roswell, and quite honestly, probably 3 of these are gone by now. And I hope I didn't misquote you, Mayor Wood, but I think it's, again, very evident that there's a high demand for residential in this area and even on Woodstock Road. This is a house that recently went up on Coleman. This house is within 200 yards of Woodstock Road. The house was sold before it was completed. This is a house on Thompson Road. Thompson is immediately south of Woodstock Road. It's certainly within 200 yards. The proposed zoning changes, again, this house was recently built. These homes were recently built on Minonette, which is the extension of Fowler on the other side of Crabapple Road. And again, this is another development on Minonette. And this is actually, you can say what you want about the house, but this is a new house going up right on Woodstock Road. And so again, I think there is a strong desire for residential in this neighborhood, and I don't think that making this zoning change, I think making this zoning change will hurt that. Personally, just one last note, our backyard abuts the property on 73 Woodstock. Not only is there not a specific plan for 73 Woodstock, he's also asked for a variance from a 40-foot buffer to a 10-foot buffer. We actually can see his property from the back of our house. We can see the trucks that used to be there. And we're going to see the lighting and certainly appreciate the noise and traffic that's going to come if it's changed to OP. And just one last statement. This is a lovely house that actually is asking for a change. I appreciate and understand why they're asking for a change. I know it's a financial decision, but I actually think this is a wonderful house that the right developer and builder could make into a wonderful property. And we respectfully hope that you agree with the Zoning Commission's, what they've come up with, and deny Mr. Rockland's request.
Who'd like to speak next? If you're sitting near the front, you'll be called before the people sitting near the back.
Hi, my name is Amy Spielman, and I live at 455 Norwoods Drive with my husband and our children. She goes to Roswell North Elementary and Young Life Academy, and hopefully he'll be in Young Life pretty soon. There's no room for him right now. I'm going to skip some slides. Oh, there's something I wanted to mention. I'm sorry. The petition that was mentioned earlier, that was for when it was going to be mixed use. The petitions that we're submitting for this, with over 700 signatures, are for the opposition to the office park. Okay, so, sorry, thanks. This is from the Strategic Economic Development Plan prepared for the City of Roswell by RKG. Some highlights here that I just want to go through. The greatest opportunity for new office space is for a radical change in the type of office space available, Class A. In terms of the office market, there's sufficient Class B and C office space in the city of Roswell. And the fact that Roswell vacancy has increased more rapidly than the metro Atlanta area market, while lease rates have fallen more drastically, indicates the market is simply oversupplied. Currently, there's 28 commercial properties available in close proximity to Canton Street for lease or purchase. You can see the map there, the arrows pointing towards Canton. 1224 Canton sat for 293 days last year on the market, and 24 Sloan sat for 199 days, and it's now back on the market. Some possible tenants were mentioned during the Planning Commission meeting. One of them would be attorneys. You can see we have a lot of legal representation available. Another was doctors, more. And another mentioned possible tenant was Day Spa. Again, from the Strategic Economic Development Plan under Policy and Regulation, this was noted. Difficulty in making strategic decisions. The absence of having universal support for the city's comprehensive plan has had an impact on the way decisions are made. The city's comprehensive plan ensures that the city follows an orderly growth and development plan to preserve its quality of life and implement its vision for future growth and redevelopment activities. The UDC is intended to serve the following purposes. I know there's like 7, but I only have 5 minutes. So, to promote and protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Roswell, and to ensure that the vision set forth in the comprehensive plan is implemented by the city's development regulations. While the UDC may change, the purposes should not. In the past 28 months, there have been over 71 recorded accidents on Woodstock Road. And I say over 71 because I saw this happen 5 days ago. There's a 74-year-old man in that car who was rushed to the hospital. Currently, we have, I guess under current conditions, we would have 3 residences and 2 heads of household to give you 6 people, as opposed to 4 offices and let's say a staff of 8, because we really don't know how many people are going to be there. But I think that's fair. 32 people. Let's add 1 doctor's office. They see an average of 23 people a day. Let's add 1 day spa. They see upwards of 50 people a day. On the weekdays, weekend it's more. So now we're at over 100 cars, 100 people, which in the grand scheme of Roswell isn't that big of a deal. But when it impacts a road like Woodstock, it is a big deal. This is Woodstock Road. And less than 40 steps away is the front door of an elementary school where I drop my daughter off every day, and the front gate to one of our most desired parks. On a road with over 71 reported accidents, this does not promote or protect the public safety and welfare of the citizens of Roswell. And to say that it's an already busy road, so let's add more, just does not make any sense. So rezoning does not address a need. It adds to existing inventory, and it does not support the first 2 purposes of the UDC. It compromises our health, safety, and welfare, as well as the 2030 Comprehensive Plan. Thank you.
Who would like to speak next?
Good evening. My name is Mary Good, and Chris and I are the new owners of 52 Woodstock. My husband Chris and I bought the property at 52 Woodstock last March. Over the years, we've gotten involved in our North Fulton community. We have lived in the North Fulton community for the last 18 years, and we live in one of those mega neighborhoods so popular for many of us. Over the years, as we've gotten involved, whether it's volunteering or church or school, because our daughter is enrolled here locally, we found ourselves moving closer and closer to Roswell. So we become to know the community. So last year we decided to start looking for areas to live in. We started looking in Roswell. Like many of the residents here, we like the feel of Canton Street and Woodstock. We like the residential feel without the feel of the mega neighborhood. And so we chose Roswell because of the history, the culture, and what the town had to offer. When the property at 52 Woodstock became available for sale last February, we offered to buy it because of the location. We liked the residential feel, even though it was on a busy street, while at the same time the location allowed us to walk to many of the local shops and restaurants. Some of you may know Gerd Olber, who was the prior owner of our home. And it was very important to Mr. Olber that the house stayed residential. That was his pride and joy even when he moved back to Germany. As we worked to develop our plan to build our home on the property, the city of Roswell had us work to save that beautiful water oak that sits in the front of our home. In order for us to build our property within the approved zone, we were required to provide the city of Roswell with plans for our new home and get the approval so we could build. We object to the proposed zoning change. We moved here because of the small town residential feel, even though we're on a busy street. Chris and I disagree with the implication that this is not a residential area. We don't know many of our neighbors, and many of the neighbors have not met Chris and I. So we are speaking without knowing many of the people that we will soon be living near. We believe we're moving into a residential community, and we believe that that is supported by the neighbors and the willingness to work together as represented here tonight at this meeting. Again, like the woman beside me addressed, traffic is an issue. It is a busy street. We live close to Canton, and our construction is adding to the confusion right now on Canton and Woodstock. So we feel it for our neighbors, and we see it as ourselves. We also believe that the residential area is supported by the amount of schools. You've got Young Life, you've got the Roswell Elementary School, you've got Blessed Trinity, you've got Fellowship Christian, Queen of Angels, and Roswell High School in a 2.5-mile period. If that doesn't designate that it's not a residential area, I don't know what is. Where there are children, there are families, and where there are families, there are residents, and there are homes and a community. We are looking forward to being residents of this Roswell community, and we would appreciate you carefully considering this zoning request. Thank you.
Who would like to speak next? Yes, come forward.
Hi, good evening. I'm Denise Dedamore. I didn't plan on speaking this evening, but after listening to all of the discussions, I wanted to let you know I represent Park Bridge HOA. And Bill, are you here? Can you bring the map up so we can show? We live right behind Bill on Park Bridge Lane, and there are 32 houses there in that community. Hi. Thank you. Get that. So if you see here on the map, this is Park Bridge Lane. There's 32 homes, if I can point to that. We are a unique community of little cottage, sort of New England-style homes. Some people think our neighborhood is very charming. We kind of joke that we're the low-income housing in the neighborhood. But we also are doing pretty well with the sales of our homes in there. People are coming in there without even having to have a property listed. People are getting notes in their mailbox saying that people are looking for homes to buy because of the proximity to Canton Street. I agree with the previous speakers that talked about how important residentials are. When you look from Canton Street down to Roswell Area Park, you have some of the most charming looking craftsman-style homes, and that is the gateway from Woodstock, Crossville, all the way down Woodstock to Canton Street. That's the gateway to the historic district. Now you're going to line it up with more commercial signs. Some of them are neon signs, which are very distracting. Coleman Road is a nightmare when it comes to traffic. You guys know that there's been multiple traffic accidents at that intersection that's never been dealt with. And I also have to bring up what Bill talked about was the 2030 plan, and it says in there that new development demonstrates attention to existing adjacent neighborhoods and seeks a compatibility. making all of this area commercial is not compatible with what all the other neighborhoods around. And I know, sir, you were talking about the 19. There's a lot more people in this community than just the 19 that you are representing here. So from someone who's lived here for 12 years, I'm against the zoning of the commercial. I also think we need to take into consideration that we do have the school just around the corner. When does it stop? A couple of years ago, you all denied a bed and breakfast which was adjacent to the Roswell Area Park because you did not want that area to become commercial. But if we continue to move forward and let all of this commercial continue to encroach upon areas down Woodstock Road, you're now going to have all different types of signs leading into your flagship park, leading into one of the best schools in Fulton County. So that's my opinion. I didn't have any idea that I was going to speak tonight, but I'm glad I did. Thank you.
Hello, Mary Wood, City Council. My name is Renee Weimer, and I live at 128 Woodstock Road. I'm separated by the proposed properties by only Young Life Academy. My husband and I grew up in Roswell. He attended Roswell Elementary. We both attended Crabapple Middle School and Roswell High School. My family has owned our home for 19 years, and my kids are the third generation to call 128 home. I'd like to begin by addressing the notions that no one would want to raise a family here and no one would want to live next to Young Life, as Mr. Rockland mentioned in the meeting with the Planning Commission. I've been happily raising my children on Woodstock for 7 years. Alan is in fact a fantastic neighbor in more ways than one, and I argue that whoever were to buy and move into the property next to him would find him a great neighbor as well. Living on Woodstock offers the best of both worlds, as many people have mentioned. Walkability to all downtown has to offer in a residential setting. My girls and our dogs play safely in our fenced yard. We walk to Thumbs Up for weekend breakfast, to Canton Street for dinner and treats, and to Roswell Area Park for the playground. There's a resurgence in the demand for this type of living, not only in Roswell, but in all of Atlanta and the U.S. To deny that, I honestly, there's no substance to the argument that there is not a demand for the in-town gateway community living. Inman Park, Virginia Highlands, Decatur, all have a gateway into their downtown area that's lined with residential. Demand is evident. There are 9 office spaces vacant within a half mile of the 3 proposed properties. Those are the only ones that I could reach today. There may be more. And there are several residential projects underway in the same radius. I've received 6 mailbox notes in the past 2 years from people interested in buying my property to live there. I'd like to show a map as well, just to kind of contrast Mr. Rockland's map, and I kind of think it's interesting how you can manipulate this to look how you want it to look. But this in fact shows that in the area outside the historic district, there are outside the historic district from Canton to the intersection of North Coleman and Woodstock Road. This is my house here. There are actually 12 homes, 1 school, and 4 businesses. When Mr. Rockland grouped in these existing properties here, he's actually including those that turn the corner of Woodstock and are still part of the historic district. And though these are not zoned R12 residential, what's being built here are in fact multifamily residences. In January last year, my house was featured on a program on HGTV. We were chosen largely due to the charm of our neighborhood, and approving this project is a surefire way to kill that charm. We've had plans for further improvements to our home, but those have all come to a screeching halt due to this proposition. I just want to share a little bit about our neighborhood, and I'm going to read straight from the letter that I sent you all. So if you actually read it, my apologies for repeating myself. The neighborhood we live in now is more of a neighborhood than any subdivision I've ever lived in. We have a close relationship with all of our neighbors, and we consider them our friends. In fact, we often refer to our neighborhood, Woodstock, Fowler, and Coleman Street, as our little slice of Mayberry. We meet regularly for cookouts, block parties, holiday parties, book clubs, or cocktails before a walk to dinner on Canton Street. We know where others hide spare keys, the names of all of our pets, the interests of our children. We let out each other's dogs when neighbors get delayed with work, provide emergency babysitting, and even lend out cups of sugar. My jaw dropped when it was suggested that no one would want to live in my neighborhood. Anyone should be so lucky. I implore you to deny the rezoning request for Woodstock Road, save my neighborhood, and preserve Roswell, and continue to defend us if this fight carries on. Thank you.
Yes, sir, come forward.
Good evening. My name is David Keating. I live at 89 Nancy Trail with my wife Kim and our 2 boys, ages 8 and 7. I've lived in Roswell for a little over 9 years, and Kim's been here for 36 years. We oppose the petitions to rezone these properties from residential to commercial for 2 fundamental reasons. The first is that they don't satisfy the UDC criteria for rezoning. They don't satisfy the criteria. And the second is that it would be, in our view, mistaken policy. It's a decision that would be contrary to what we've been hearing about, I think, tonight, about the demand for residential properties in this area, the dramatic undersupply, and the ability, the opportunity that we have to continue to see this area develop as an entryway to Canton Street, a beautiful entryway that is similar to what we see in other parts of Atlanta, in certain neighborhoods and other cities in the southeast. Something we don't otherwise have for the historic district. We don't have it on Highway 9 South, Atlanta Street South. We don't have it on Highway 9 going north, on Canton Street going north. We only really have it here. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the criteria and a few points in my limited time. And we reviewed these points at the Planning Commission meeting before the Planning Commission unanimously recommended to reject these petitions. The first point is whether the rezoning would correct an error, which it wouldn't, and staff agreed with that in the staff's recommendations and report. The second point is whether the rezoning would substantially conform to the comprehensive plan, which the staff agreed with us that it does not, and Mr. Rockland agreed that it does not in his applications. The third point then is whether the rezoning would conform substantially to the UDC itself and its purposes and intent. And I think just a quick look at the UDC would tell us that it does not. In this section titled Purpose, where we are provided with the intent, the element that I highlighted here was to ensure that the vision set forth in the comprehensive plan is implemented by the city. And since the comprehensive plan would provide that this is residential, we think that the petitions are inconsistent with the UDC itself. We've heard about how the properties from Coleman Street to North Coleman Road outside of the historic district are 12 residential to 4 business to 1 school, so we don't think this would reinforce the existing or planned character of the area either. And I want to mention number 10 in particular too, the 10th factor, which is whether the rezoning would have a significant adverse impact on property that's in the vicinity of the subject property. The staff in their report in responding to this criteria mentioned that the area is in transition, but there was nothing about whether the rezoning would have an adverse impact or whether it would or would not. The statement was that it's in transition. And we would agree that it's in transition. It's in transition toward residential reinvestment, not toward commercial. And I think that's indicated by the recent development and investment in the area. Some of the folks who are making those investments have spoken to us tonight. But in addition, there's the loss of families. There's the permanent change in character of this area that would result from rezoning that has an impact not just on the homes that are next door to these properties, because that's not what the code tells us, The code says the property's in the vicinity. So that's like us who live behind these houses, the people on Fowler, Coleman Street, and in the surrounding area. If we look here at some examples, just thinking about demand and what we have an opportunity to do in Roswell, here's Long Circle with beautiful new development. The porch project on Thompson Place was a teardown of an older home that was rebuilt. The home on Woodstock Road, a beautiful home that's being built, Woodstock Road. Renee's house on the other side of Young Life that, as she noted, following its renovation, was featured on HGTV. That suggests that's home and garden television, and that suggests a residential character to the area. This is Coleman Street, awesome house, the Fagan's house they've shown. And then here's the Cuban restaurant in the back of the commercial property on Woodstock Road with its parking lot and dumpster and chain link fence. And here's like this house-like property that we hear about, this house-like development that we could have an office, but it's really a house and an office, or it looks like a house, but it's an office. And this is on Norcross Street. It's a perfect location for this sort of thing. It's right across the street from it's Warsaw, right across the street from the CVS and the Olive Garden. And this is great. Like when we saw these going up several years ago, we were like, this is great. This is a triumph, right? Because really nice looking property, right where it belongs. Nothing else is going to be there. And you get this, and you get the sign, and the parking lot, and the dumpster. And what a mistake it would be to do that on Woodstock as we enter Canton Street.
Who would like to speak next?
My name is Katie Ballou. I live at 905 Camp Avenue in historic Roswell. I'm also, I will say, the realtor for Tom and Carol Parrish on their home at 84 Woodstock Road. And I did want to say that I certainly appreciate everyone that's come here tonight to preserve the look and feel of Roswell. And I think that we're all in agreement what we're striving to achieve. I think the difference is in terms of what's already occurred on Woodstock and how that's going to impact these properties, particularly the parishes, who already abut an office professional property. There was one thing I wanted to share with the council and I don't know that, I'm sure this wasn't intentional, but a couple of things. Will this show if I just stick this up here? You probably can't see that, but those two buildings were at the beginning of the petition that was circulated to Roswell residents with the addresses of these properties underneath it. I don't know if I can enlarge that at all. I'm not going to do an audio-visual thing, but they are 3- and 4-story office buildings encased in glass, far different from the depiction of what was presented for approval of this rezoning. So this petition was being circulated, and I think heck, I would sign a petition against those buildings myself. The other thing that was going around in the petition was the opening statement to say that a developer has purchased the single-family suburban properties on Woodstock Road between these addresses. Tom and Carol would really be happy if they had a contract on the house, not necessarily with a commercial developer, but since we've listed the home, the inquiries have been whether or not they could use the house for an office professional use. Everyone loves the curb appeal of their home, of Tom and Carol's property, and it's lovely, and people are interested in investing in it, but there is that cost-benefit equation that someone will not invest it if they think there's going to be opposition to rezoning, even though it's next door to already an office professional property. some of the things that I was encouraged to see that staff did recommend approval of the property with the conditions, limiting the development to a two-story structure, putting the 40-foot buffer abutting to residential, requiring the sidewalks. I run to the park from my home in historic Roswell all the time. I can't run on that side of Woodstock. There are no sidewalks that take me all the way through. So a lot of the objections that they were talking about with the residents behind happen to be even with the drainage. And the type of development that they're talking about putting here, whether it's a repurpose of the house that's there or the types of structures that Steve Rockland is proposing, are in line with the ambiance of the street. I think there's potential for a win-win in this scenario in retaining the ambiance of the street, and anything that's going to be built there is still going to go through the planning process, zoning, and the city council for approval. And everyone is keenly aware that that's the kind of structure that they want to build there. I will say that Tom and Carol are in kind of a real estate pickle, if you will. People are interested in the property. Certainly someone for residential use could be interested for the property, but this is .8 acres. And so this is a much larger tract of land than, for instance, what was at 52 Woodstock. And the way the rezoning for residential has been adjusted, the frontage limitation prohibits development, say, of two properties, of two residential homes there. We would love to build two homes there if we could. I've had builders ask me about that. But there's a restriction on the requirement of, in this area, you've got to have at least 85 foot of frontage on the street to build a home. Also, the city now has prohibited flag lots. So, like 52 Woodstock, that's a flag lot. There's a home in front and a home in back. We're prohibited from doing that too. So, any way that the parishes have an opportunity to really obtain the value of the home has been blocked by zoning, restrictions on residential, which I think even the neighbors behind would love to see two homes developed there, and it has the square footage to do that. So we're kind of in a tough situation in that respect. So I'm just requestfully asking for approval of rezoning with the staff recommendations and conditions, and I think that will present the win-win scenario.
Thank you. Who'd like to speak next?
Hi, my name is Kim Trotter. I live at 600 Oakstone Way, which is in Roswell. I'm not on the front lines. I'm about a mile or so away, back in the neighborhoods west. Learned a lot tonight. One of the things I learned is that I really liked your plans. You know, the good news here is that if this does go to development, we have a developer who I really think has Roswell in his heart. He's lived here forever. Parishes, I've never met you before. Y'all are in a pickle. I feel for you. You know, you're caught there in urban development, and that's what all this is about. So I'm going to break this down as simply as I could. You know, when I moved here 22 years ago, Woodstock Road was a beautiful road. It's still a pretty road today. It is. But that end of it is not as pretty as it used to be. You want to move. That says something in itself. So, to the council, if I was going to vote, I would vote no. If we're going to err, let's err on the side of caution. Let's stop the creeping while we can. And that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? I see no hands up. Public hearing's closed. We'll give Mr. Rockland the opportunity for a rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A fairly simple rebuttal. I can't make all the people here happy, nor can you with either decision. So you're in a pickle just like the parishes are. Rezoning the neighbor who has 300 students at Young Life, he just told you he's for it. I showed you the map earlier. We already have people that are very interested in offices. There's 14 offices there now. Every single one of them is full. There's nothing that's not have a resident in it or is being transitioned into something else that's going to be commercial. The same thing with what I have going on. We have people that are coming to me every day that want to have an office right there on Woodstock, so they're close to their homes, that they can walk to lunch and use it just like you do, Mr. Mayor. That's what they're looking for. There are plenty of people that want this as office as much as they do residential. We did hear 3 ladies get up tonight that live on Woodstock. Well, you have 3 other people here that are trying to get OP that live on Woodstock. So I think that's a pretty even number. Most of the people that live on Fowler or live on Nancy Circle or Thompson or Minonette, which I have jobs on every single one of those streets going on, don't deal with the traffic at Woodstock. They don't deal with the signs that are already out there commercially. They don't already deal with what's going on Woodstock. They're in their little area, safe, out of the way, that they don't have to deal with what goes on in Woodstock every day. And the traffic on Woodstock is bad. What we're proposing isn't going to make the traffic any worse on Woodstock. That's through traffic that's going through Roswell, on its way to 92, heading out to Canton or out to Cobb or over to Woodstock. Those are traffic people that are moving through that street, not because they live there, not because they're residents of Roswell, but because that's the thoroughfare that we've created for people to get through the town in. We've set a lot of standards with our construction. I heard one lady say about how buildings burnt down. Well, we took an Indigo restaurant that was burnt completely to the bottom. We preserved that building on the outside even though the whole inside was removed. We built Noka Restaurant there, saved it a historic property, and it's probably one of the nicest of the restaurants on Canton Street. The fire pit outside, the look of the building was maintained and was preserved because that's what we try and do with our work. We do that on a constant basis. We took Q-Care a couple years ago. That was the same office that we did there. We redid it. We put in the storm drainage, and we preserved what was there that had been there for 40 years. So I think our standards and what we've set and what we say we'll do, we will do. We work with the building department every day here. We work with all the people in engineering, and we try and go by their guidelines. We listen to what they have to say and try and make it better. And based upon the facts here tonight and what you see already on the street, I know we have a bunch of residents here that live in different places and stuff. They came forward and told you how great everything is. I think it's great too. I've been here longer than almost all of them. I've built in Brookfield West. I've built all over the city of Roswell. I've done commercial and residential. I've done development work in the city. I only hope that we can vote for the correct way on this rezoning tonight, because I'd really like for it to stop here tonight and make this the end of the deal and let us get on with the nice, quaint, eclectic offices that belong right there on the end of Woodstock. I know staff has already said it should stop at North Coleman. I believe it should stop right there at the school. I think that was the proper spot. What I started this out with tonight is exactly the way I still feel. When you sent that out, staff had been doing their research. You paid a lot of money for what they came up with, and that was what their recommendation was 2 years ago. I still believe that's correct today. Thanks for your time.
Does council have any questions before we entertain a motion, or comments before we entertain a motion? Councilmember Diamond.
This is one of the hardest ones we've had. It's actually a couple blocks from my own house, so I understand all the concerns that you're talking about. I also know this is one of the best quality builders that we've had in Roswell, and that he is a stakeholder in the street and certainly has a track record that we could all be happy with. There's been a lot of conversation over the years, just since I've been here, but I know over the years about stopping that development, and where does that happen? Where does the residential stick and continue? And the conversation's always been Fowler and North Coleman, but I don't know, and even in the discussions about the bed and breakfast, I know we talked about that, but there's never been anything specific. Part of me likes the idea that a building under a different zoning would be subject to DRB scrutiny, where a residence would not be. There's a lot more house you could put, a lot more mass that could happen under that scenario. I don't have any real excitement about changing any variances on the sidewalks or those kind of things, because I think those are critically important. I don't remember us doing this on a future site plan. That's my trepidation is that we generally have a rezoning, even if the property's under contract, where there's a specific plan and a specific tenant, and we can condition to that specific use. And when I look at this area, which really we don't have a huge helpful guidance of what it should be, I feel like I look at Parkway Village offers a little bit of an opportunity in that zoning category, but we can't do that. Office professional concerns me because it opens up a whole lot of other things. Downtown house is the closest thing I can get to that we might be able to condition to a few uses, but I'd have to get comfortable with how the lighting and if there were any dumpsters or how that would be. I do want to say neon signs are not allowed in Roswell, so that and certainly not in that area, that would not be a concern. And just as a personal aside, I have difficulty with petitions largely for the reasons that you showed. I've seen how they get created, and that's not always a pretty process. And I would think that there might be potential for splitting lots. I think that is something that we could certainly talk about. There are variances that could be had on that. Not stating the viability of that, but as a realtor, and that, Katie, you're in this area a lot, that's not something to shy away from in the future. Having said all that, I really don't know what to do here. So I guess I look at every house that I look to buy, would I rather be behind whatever it is that's behind me? And is that an office? Or, I always look at whatever's behind me could potentially be 6 kids and a trampoline. That's kind of my benchmark. And would I prefer that to an office? This is a really difficult spot in town, so I will anxiously await my coworkers' opinions.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Nancy. This is a tough one. And I was on Woodstock the other day taking a look around and trying to understand this neighborhood, and you all have done a great job of explaining it in a lot more detail than I could have figured out myself, having lived here for a while and even just being on the street. In the past, we have had discussions about where is the proper place to stop the commercial. Is it closer into Canton Street? Is it North Coleman? And for a while, we were starting to think maybe it is North Coleman, because it seems to be the houses along there were struggling, but that doesn't appear to be the case anymore. And listening to you all tonight, I mean, there's definitely a sense of community, a sense that you really want to keep the cohesiveness of this neighborhood, and that's admirable. And I know a lot of the parents that have kids at Roswell North, and they've had a lot of concern about this particular zoning. And I think some of that was because of the pictures that were sent around were these big glass office buildings. And I think we've seen tonight that that's actually not what Mr. Rockland is proposing. But having seen all that, you all are here tonight and you still have concerns about it. So, although there might have been some misinformation that was spread around, that happens just about every zoning that happens in this town, I think you've shown tonight that you still have concerns about what's going on, even though it's not the big glass buildings, it's something else. What it does is it changes the character. What's critical about this street is maintaining the character of the street. And we need to be real careful about that when we make this decision, because we don't want that to change, because it's a great street right now. Obviously, people are interested in having residential there because somebody's building a house there right now. So it really makes you think twice about that. And I was reading through the minutes from the Planning Commission, and the chairman of the Planning Commission said, this is an area in transition, but we think it's transitioning back the other way. It's actually transitioning toward residential instead of away from residential. And that's a good thing. And I think that's something that is sustainable and something that could really add to the existing character of the street and really augment what's there already. When you look at the standards of review, and one of the gentlemen here spoke about those tonight, some of the ones that are the most critical in my mind are number 4, which is the zoning map amendment will reinforce the existing or planned character of the area. The existing character of the area is primarily residential. There is a little bit of professional office there. There's a salon. But those, to me, don't detract from the residential feel of the area. They are uses where you can walk to. They're small in scale, low in impact. I think they blend in well with the area. So to me, the area really still has a residential character. And then item number 10, it says the zoning map amendment will not have a significant adverse impact on property in the vicinity of the subject property. Well, we really don't have enough information based on the plans that we saw tonight to determine what is that impact going to be. And, at a minimum, it's going to be taking a residential area, transforming it to office. Worst case scenario, as someone pointed out, there could be a tremendous amount of traffic. And there's a whole lot more traffic with office than there is with residential. So that concerns me as well. I think those two items, in my mind, are significant. And I think, those really sway me against this rezoning application. I think Mr. Rockland does a great job. He's done a lot of good product in the city of Roswell. There's nothing against him or the product that he does. I think it just may not be appropriate for this area. And then lastly, in looking at the UDC and taking a look at what we designate as areas for OP, they're really for more of our node areas, the 400 corridor, Alpharetta Highway. When we anticipated putting in OP, we didn't anticipate putting it on the side streets like this. And although we have some on there because it's existing, it's really not something that we were planning to have in the future. So for all those reasons, I guess looking at these as a group, I don't support these rezonings as a group.
Councilmember Eichelhardt.
First, let me say that I think that Mr. Rockland has a good reputation, has done a lot of good work, and your ideas are good on this. So I don't think that's a concern about what you would build. But having said that, all the things that Mr. DiPolito just said, I think, are the greater concern. And I commend all the folks who really put together the presentations and really got into all the detail of the UDC, because frankly it's a difficult document to understand in some cases, and you've really hit the key points. So I won't go into those other than to say, we have made a lot of changes at what can happen in development in Roswell. And several things, if you go further up Woodstock, you've seen those things that are now being built. And we essentially removed density restrictions, and so those numbers are going to be much higher than what we've ever allowed. And so once those are built, we're already going to see a major increase in traffic, even more than what we have now. And at some point, we have to recognize that we're doing it to ourselves. And I think this is another case where there are positives on the side that you're looking at, but as Mr. DiPolito said, we really have to look at what we're doing, and every single property is always going to be next to what's there now. So where do we stop that? And if you do these ones, then you go to the next one, then we say, well, North Corman was that break point. Well, before it used to be back over here. So, it just keeps moving on. So, we have to make that choice, and we're the ones that do that. So since Councilwoman Wynn is not here, nobody's stepping forward to make a motion, I guess it's proper. I will make a motion to deny. Is it all four, or we need to do them separate? One. So
our city attorney tells us we need to vote separately, but you can make a motion to deny all four, and we can vote separately if you wish.
Whatever's the easiest.
It's easiest for you to make a motion to deny all four if that's your wish.
That's what I will make a motion to do.
Motion by Councilman Eichelhardt to deny all four zoning requests. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Price. Any further discussion before we take a vote on each individual? Councilmember Price.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate my gratitude, actually, for my fellow council members for seeing it the way I do, and thank everyone for coming this evening, and thank Mr. Rockland, because I know he's got good ideas, and his product is good. But boy, I'm thinking that there could be some great residential houses there that probably you could do well with, and it would really accentuate the neighborhood. So I'm hopeful that will occur, but I'm thinking that what's being proposed here is not the direction that things seem to be going currently, and probably not in keeping with the 2030 plan. Certainly the wishes of the Planning Commission as they reviewed everything, and a great number of people that like to live close to Canton Street but don't want to turn this into a commercial corridor. And I know we've got a couple of OPs in there. For all intents and purposes, they look like residential, and they could flip back easily. And they're very conditioned heavily such that they're not potentially to be a lot of different things. The concern we have here that we don't know exactly what might go in each place, and I know that 88 is a very narrow property, and the proposal there with a lot of parking along the side really sort of didn't appeal to me as well. So I guess you know how I feel since I seconded the motion, so I guess we'll just go on with the vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion before I call for the vote? The first will be vote on item number 5, which is 73 Woodstock Street. All in favor of denial of rezoning and request on 73 Woodstock Street, raise their hands. That is unanimous. Second will be on 84 Woodstock Road. All in favor of denial of rezoning on 84 Woodstock Road, raise their hands. That is unanimous. Next will be 86 Woodstock Road. All in favor of denial of rezoning of 86 Woodstock Road, raise their hands. That is unanimous. Next will be the vote on 88 Woodstock Road. All in favor of denial of the rezoning on 88 Woodstock Road, raise their hands. That is unanimous. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Tactical area.
1241 Canton Street, land lot 410, Canton Street Properties, LLC. Mr. Townsend.
This is at 1241 Canton Street. The applicant is requesting a current OP designation to an NX, neighborhood mixed-use designation. This is the location on Canton Street, north of Woodstock. This is an aerial photograph. The council will remember that the 2 parcels just north of that were rezoned for the Parkside on Canton, which was a mixed-use development with townhouses in the rear, office and condos in the front. This is the current zoning map. You see all of the NX, the magenta purple to the south, the letter OP to the north, this property OR to the north. This is the OP designation on the existing property. The applicant is requesting to go from OP to NX to allow for future uses on the property. This is an existing survey of the plan showing the joint access from the property to the north, a couple of parking spaces right off of Woodstock, an existing home that's been converted into office, and a larger building that has been placed in the back of the property, which the applicant will discuss its uses. And we have Planning Commission recommended denial of the NX designation. Staff recommended denial of the NX designation. Do you have any questions?
The recommendation of denial, what was the basis?
The OP designation, we feel, makes the proper transition to the OR designation. The existing buildings, whatever they would be utilized as, currently have existing parking for that office use. If there was the NX designation that would allow more intense uses, there's not sufficient parking for those types of uses, so either a building would have to be removed to add for additional parking, or they would have to find some other arrangement for parking in the area.
Does the council have any questions for staff? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, the office residential to the north, we just rezoned from OP. Is that correct? What was it before?
Yes.
It was OP. So if that was still OP, would you still have an issue with this becoming NX? Because then the OP to the north would be the transition.
It's where you're going to draw the line.
Okay. I understand your comments about the parking, and I know the Planning Commission denied this as well because of, one of the reasons was because of lack of parking.
Right.
How many parking spaces would be required if this was NX? Is it dependent on the use?
It's really the use. I think we figured out if it would go to the restaurant we discussed it the last time. Was that almost 30 spaces for restaurant and close to 15, maybe 18 if it were to go retail with the current square footages of the buildings that are there.
Well, I thought retail, well, and that was what was confusing me. I was looking at the charts and trying to understand the parking. Retail, the minimum is 1 per 300.
Right.
Office is 1 per 300.
Right.
So right now, he has 12 spaces, some of which are in the garage.
Right.
So some of them are undercover. So if it was retail, he would have adequate parking, even though some of the parking is in the garage, so the employees could have covered parking.
Right.
So really, the problem with the NX is just those uses that would require additional parking.
Right.
So if, I guess I'm trying to figure out, is there a way for this to be NX based on the current site plan, where if that was, provided the use that went into that building had adequate parking. So, in other words, he couldn't, let me rephrase this in the form of a question.
Okay.
This is like Jeopardy or something. If we zone this to NX, and he wanted to put in a restaurant, he couldn't because he doesn't have adequate parking. Is that correct?
That's correct. He'd have to find other provisions to provide the parking required for the restaurant square footage use.
So he would have to find off-site parking and have an agreement of some sort.
Some type of arrangement, or the square footage needed to be adjusted to be able to take the back building down and make that a whole parking lot. You know, if that was a possibility, he can make those types of adjustments to the site, or he would have to be off-site.
So if he took down the building, wouldn't that require a site plan amendment? So you'd have to come back through the process? Or is that something you could do?
Depending on how tight you draw the approval, yes.
But it could be zoned NX. He would just have to know that he's limited on what uses he could put in there based on his available parking.
He would have to know his limitations, and you would have to feel comfortable that those limitations are going to control if he makes arrangements to be able to put outdoor patio area in the front, and, you know, makes an arrangement with the middle school and parks them at the middle school. You know, I think that's farther than 800 feet, though.
I guess so that really is up to staff to determine that he has enough parking when he goes to put the use in, right?
We would control it at the business license stage of what we would be able to permit or not allow at that stage, correct. But you're probably giving, if you put an NX on the property, the speculation starts. And you give him the opportunity to say, I can at least speculate on this use if I can find out how to ameliorate the parking numbers. That's a word from David.
Ameliorate? All right, so, but from a process standpoint, just so I'm clear on that, if we were to zone it to NX and he came in and said, you know what, I decided I want to put a restaurant in here instead of retail. Then when he came in for a building permit, we'd check the zoning, and somehow that would trigger that there's not enough parking?
Right.
Okay. So when somebody comes in for a building permit, we always check the zoning to make sure it's consistent?
Yes. As well as every approved site plan that's been for the last...
And you have to look at the site plan. So if I came in to build a restaurant in an existing facility, you'd go check and make sure I have adequate parking for it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Staff, Councilmember Diamond.
Brad, I know we had talked when we redid the properties to the north about the access. They're all pretty open to each other. Do those buffers all work with NX as they would presently, or what?
I don't think the buffers are increased if you go to NX, between NX and OR. No, there isn't
I
a
don't
buffer.
see any, if you approve it, any conditions, so
Right.
there was no variances that would be needed or anything.
No.
And if somebody came forward and said, I want to take all this NX and make it into one project, I guess I'm trying to understand what the benefit is to going to NX for the applicant, and we can ask you that when you come up. Why this benefits you if you're going to have to tear down what I know is a hard-fought building.
Yep.
It seems like only yesterday.
I'm sure those comments will be answered by the
Okay, well,
applicant.
I'll wait for the applicant then.
Okay.
Council, have any other questions for staff? This time we'll hear from the applicant.
Okay. I'm not sure how to work this here, but are you able to put this one from your report on the computer, or do I just lay it on? Lay it on? Voila. There we go. Okay. I need my reading glasses. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and appreciate your time to hear my points and comments on the application. Just by way of background, to give everybody the same information, I renovated the existing building, as some of you... Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Chris Callis, and I own Canton Street Properties, which is the LLC that owns 1241 Canton Street. And I'm also a resident of Roswell for 24 years. I own Q-Care, bought it a number of years ago. I am looking at selling it. I've had some discussions on that, and I've got a broker that's looking for me. I don't know when that will take place, but when that happens, I plan to and will lease my property at 1241. The property is currently configured with 3 suites. There's 2 buildings, 3 suites, 100, 200, and 300. 100 is the street side, which is approximately just slightly below 2,000 square foot. 200 is the rear side of the front building, and that's roughly 1,200 square feet. And the back building, the new building, the Hardley Fort building, is about 2,900 square feet. And it's presently set up as a garage. It's got doors in the front and back that can open up, and so it's a sort of light shop garage configuration. What I want to do, and I believe what's the best use of the property, is to ideally lease out at least the front area, the 2,000 square foot, as a cafe, restaurant type facility, depending on what tenant I could find. And if they would take the whole property, that would be great. The lower part could potentially be, if it were, that kind of thing, could be a prep room, kitchen, that sort of thing, because 2,000 square feet isn't very much for a restaurant facility, so they, depending on what it was, unless it was something like the mom's kitchen up the street, where they don't do a lot of prep work, then they would need that space, and that space could continue to be an office, or it could be an office for the business, depending on what the tenant would want. And the rear building could either be used for
all three of the suites, as we do, for one enterprise, one tenant, or I could split it and have the back, if somebody wanted the restaurant in the front, not the back, then I would look to make the back. I think the best use would be either an art gallery, yoga salon, that type of thing, which there are a couple on the street, and it's very nice. It adds amenities and so forth to the neighborhood. So I guess to say that, ideally, and I think the best use, and the best use for me as an investor, is for that space to be as a restaurant cafe, because it will get the most return per square footage.
Before you go on.
Yes.
Now, this is what I understand. If it's a restaurant, he does not have enough parking on site. So what would your intention to be if you have a restaurant? How do you
Well, I was going to address the parking. I can address the parking. I'll do that now.
Okay, go ahead, because that's...
Presently, we have parking on the front of the building right now. We have 4 parking spaces. One of them is a handicap. In the back of the building, we park 14 cars. So they're on the outside of the garage building, because we've got the buffer in the back, and I believe that buffer was, I'm not certain of this, we allowed for 50 feet, because I think it used to be 50, I believe it may be 40 now, so it may actually increase the usable space, but assuming that it's 50, which is what we're honoring right now, presently, we park 13 to 14 cars, which include my vans and trucks there right now, presently. The vans only come inside only on nights, well, this week is kind of cold, but when it's freezing, we bring them inside. Otherwise, they're all parked in the back. So, as it stands now, we have anywhere from 17 to 18 spaces on the property. And if, depending on what we're in the back building, they may not require nearly as much if under the mixed use, I were to split it to 2 tenants. So, yes, there may be some parking, and I would assume that whatever parking requirements and the spacing and how that would all have to work would have to be taken up in the permitting process for...
Well, just to try to cut to the chase, Brad, how many, if the restaurant, we say, would be 2,000 square feet?
Yes, the front building, the main building, which is...
And how many parking spaces would that restaurant require, 2,000 square feet?
13.
13. So he's got 5 spaces to spare.
How many
dealing with the other almost 3,000 square feet of building.
Right.
So is it, how many per 100 is it?
Well, if it was office, you've got 13 spaces, and if you've got office warehouse, how many additional spaces does he require?
For the warehouse?
He's got a garage. I'm just trying to say if it's office warehouse space. Because it sounds like kind of what it is.
So if we add the lower floor area and the warehouse storage area all as office, he would need 13 more spaces.
So you understand, Brad, what Brad's telling you is that
the numbers don't
work for a restaurant and office.
Yes. Well, I didn't get to that, but I thought there would, if I had 2,000 in the front, depending on what the back would be, obviously I would have to adhere to the permitting. There are others on the street that, if I look at the shop, that are retail, not office, and the next best use for me...
Yeah, retail's a whole different. Retail requires a lot less than restaurant.
Right, and so my hope was to do, but if I can't do that, either because I can't get it permitted or I can't find the right tenant, then the next best use that I want to do is do a retail, either a small shop, gift shop, or something like that, in the main space and potentially into the back, or split to a gallery in the back if it were 2 businesses, and the lower level could be an office for the business. It's very small down there. It would be storage and an office, probably, how it would be used. It's not something that's going to be... If you look at it 6,000 square foot and consider that to be active office like a regular commercial, it's not that big a space. It's a basement office on the back side of the building. And if I look at, just by comparison, the property here which is a salon, is a smaller property, and yet they have the parking there, and they have a salon, and I think it's maybe a small office or a private facility in the front, and then they have the hair salon in the back. And I have more parking spaces than they do because I have spots along the building. My property's quite a bit wider, and I have more space in the back because of that. So, and that's an NX on the street. And my goal is to maximize the use. As it's currently zoned, I'm the only OP on the street. And while it allows for office, which is, I believe everybody would be happy to have an office, although they didn't want office around the corner, but I understand why they'd want it on Canton Street. It's fairly restrictive beyond that.
Let me ask a question, just another question. What you're saying is it's really hard to make restaurant work because of the parking. So could you condition it to retail office? And then his parking would work.
The retail part probably kicks the number up a little bit. He probably needs 20 spaces for retail or office. I mean, it's the same numbers per square footage for those uses. So, definitely a lot more reasonable to think that
what I hate to do is rezone something and let you believe that somehow restaurant's possible, and then they get this.
That's why staff recommended.
The staff recommending it. On the other hand, personally, I can't speak for the rest of the council. If you can find retail and office to work, I wouldn't have an objection to it on the street. I'd just have concern about zoning for a restaurant when I would know we've got a parking nightmare coming up, and then we've got to. It creates angst because you've got a restaurant zoning, but you've got to trying to make it work, and it's not going to work.
Right.
We'll hear from the rest of the council. I just want to give you my thoughts.
Okay, I understand that, and I would share that because it wouldn't do me any good if I couldn't get past the permitting process for a use that I wanted to have. But my hope was to do restaurant if that can't be the case. Like I said, right now we have 17 spots. If the garage was an active garage, it's a super wide door, you could add a couple spots there. So depending on how it was laid out, and I would have to get the engineering firm to relook at that and see, because right now it's not an issue. We can get a few more space, so we probably get to, we're 17 now, 19. And we also have an arrangement with the corner office where Mulkey is, where we share with them, and they allow us to park there if we ever need to. But in any case, we would certainly expect to adhere to any requirements during permitting. But the NX would give me a much broader use, because if I put aside my backup plan, if it's not restaurants, was to have some sort of retail shop there, and potentially like a yoga salon or art gallery in the back, which would be really the best use of that office or that space in the back. The way under OP, right now, as I read the UDC, it says that there's other things, and there's hospice and some oddball things, but for the most part, what it would allow is for office space and allows for light manufacturing. So I guess theoretically that means that like a business that was a welder, and they use examples in the code when I went and looked at it, where they refer to it, and this wouldn't be my plan, but a facility conducting light manufacturing operations within a fully enclosed building. Light manufacturing includes things from clothing, textile, apparel manufacturers, assembly manufacturing, sheet metal, welding, machine shop, tool repair, things like that. That wouldn't be a good use. While the building would be perfect for it, I don't think that's what we'd want to have on Canton Street. It's not something that I think would provide the best value for me as an investor with a property on Canton Street. But I have to be able to have some flexibility in how I can lease my property, other than simply being an office. And at this point, I'm the only property on Canton Street that is OP. They're NX up the street. These properties here you're all more familiar probably than I am with a lot of them, but they're hair salons, the little corner grocer, things like that. I would look to have a retail space that would be consistent with what else is going on the street, that would add amenities and services and value to people that, as you heard many of them say, that like to walk to Canton Street for dining and for shopping and things like that. This would be a perfect use for that facility. We have the 14 units going in right adjacent to me. I like to think that they could walk over and share in whatever services were in that space. So I would say that the annex zoning would give better flexibility and be more suitable for that area of Canton Street, adding the proposed lifestyle amenities and neighborhood services that I'm asking for. It would enhance the trend on the street, which is towards the retail shops. It would be consistent with all the other properties down the street. The NX is right up to my border. We're talking about 60 feet. It doesn't change anything on the street, but it allows me to have equal economic opportunity and use of my property with others on the street. And at the neighborhood meetings, I had no objections. There were a couple people that come by and said, "Oh, that's great. We love it over there, Canton Street. You did a nice job on renovating the building. Best wishes to you with your rezoning." And so I've had several people make the comment. They made the comment, although the commission recommended denial along with staff, several people said to me that they hope that you have better luck next time because they think it's a nice building and it would be a good proposed use. And as I mentioned earlier, of course, any modifications to the property of the buildings, presently I'm proposing nothing. It would be limited to the outside. But anything that would be required in the permitting process under an NX for a new tenant, once I would find one, would obviously be satisfied in the permitting process at that time. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that there's a lot more to restaurants. I know down the street that a lot of those restaurants don't have the parking that I do, but be that as it may, that would be something that if I couldn't meet the requirements for proposed use at that time, then I would move to Plan B. And I think that's...
For the applicant. Anyone in the public wish to comment? Yes, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. Mr. Callis, on your site plan it shows an existing gravel area all the way in the back, and then it's I guess it's just a grassed area before you get to the undisturbed buffer? Or is that just an open...
It's been gravelled back there pretty close to where the buffer is for probably 30 years, maybe more. So we freshened it up. I'm not sure. I don't have the...
Okay, the site plan doesn't show the gravel going all the way back.
It's gravel going up to the tree line, which brings it to the 50, just short of the 50-foot buffer. And then there's a couple of spots where we, in the last few feet, where we park a couple of our trucks back there now. But that would obviously have to be cleaned up. But that's presently we're parking in that gravel, and there's a partially paved area behind the garage building.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't hear anyone from the... Does anyone in the public wish to comment or have any questions? All right, any further discussion from council before we entertain a motion? Let me tell you my concern, and that is I hate to rezone it for something, a use that is the current structures don't allow. I understand staff's concern. Would it be fair to say that if we took the restaurants out of this, that all these other uses would not require he would have enough parking for, or almost enough parking for? If he's at 18 and he needs 20, he's just about there. So how would staff feel would the recommendation change if you made it conditional with no restaurants? Would y'all's recommendation change?
Probably not.
Okay. Just a try, just a thought. All right, well, those are my thoughts.
I guess if I could have one comment. Oh, I'm sorry, am I out of order? I'm sorry.
Councilmember Diamond.
I guess I see an opportunity here that, if we restrict him on restaurants and he combines property with the one next door, then what?
He's got to come back anyway.
I mean, he's got to come back anyway, but, to me, if he wants to cut off half his building and make more parking, is that really our issue, or would that would come back to us as well, right?
Depending on you conditioned it, most likely it would come back.
Okay.
So we're looking for a motion. All right, a thoughtful solution. Councilmember DiPolito.
Mr. Callis, would you have a concern if we restricted this to no restaurants?
No, that would be fine, as long as I could annex and use it as a retail shop, and would that allow for, say, it was a little grocer or that kind of thing? That would constitute retail? If it's not cooking, right? Is that the definition? Then that would be fine with me.
Yeah, personally, I don't have...
I think it would be a better use for it, honestly, as it's currently configured.
Yeah, I think, I'm fine with the annex zoning. I guess my concern, to reiterate what the mayor was saying, was to zone it with that capability, knowing that you're not going to be able to park it. So then you're coming in for a variance, and we open up a whole other can of worms. So, Mr. Townsend, are there other uses under NX that would be parking intensive that we need to be concerned about as well, that could fit in that building? Obviously, there's other uses, but they wouldn't necessarily work in a structure like that.
I don't know that we have a convenience store as a use under annex. Peak Hotel is a conditional use, a bed and breakfast is a permitted use. Special events facility is a conditional use.
So bed and breakfast is permitted today too, although that's not my goal. But and the OP, I think they're the same. I think the main thing for me would be the retail.
I think the only other one that has probably the highest, like turnover type of rate is like the gym or the health spa or the yoga studio, which would have a lot more coming and going as a use.
Right. But the structure's not that big, so you wouldn't have. I wouldn't think you'd have many more than you would in a retail scenario.
Right.
I think with the office, if the back building were converted to an office, which I don't think is the ideal use for that building, but if you put employees there, each employee comes with their own car and has to park. If you have something where people come and go on a similar sized building, it's going to require less parking. And particularly with the walk-up, because we got 14 new units going to be right next to us. I think there's one's going in around the corner. There's a lot more residential where they provide walk-up, where they're less likely to walk to an office because they typically don't move right around the corner from an office, but the local people, the residents, would use a retail store or a salon or a gallery to visit it, on a walking basis. So I think logically there would be less requirement for or need for parking. I realize that there are codes that say you have to have so many.
Code trumps logic.
I understand. I understand.
Code is supposed to be logical.
Councilmember Diamond. I'm looking for a motion.
Okay, can you tell
I'm
me...
fishing for a motion.
Hang on, can you tell me a little bit about your shared parking alternative with the office building?
Yes, we've had the ability to park with Mulkey Engineering owns the building on the corner, just on the other side of the property that was just rezoned, the two-story office complex. And so we do things for them, help clean, and they say if you ever need to have any parking, and we've occasionally parked over there. And they said that they have no problem with it as long as we use the outer lot. And so the neighbors are all pretty cooperative. Same thing with Moncrief. They've allowed parking there whether we were doing construction or we needed anything, and likewise they'll do the same thing, that people will park over by us. So there are loose arrangements, but it's very neighborly among the business neighbors.
Mr. Townsend, could something not so loose an arrangement be an alternative for parking for one of these uses?
Yes.
I mean, this is about a block from my house, and I think it'd be wonderful. So I guess I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion to approve by Councilmember Diamond. Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Any further discussion? Councilmember Eichelhardt.
Will that include any kind of restrictions, or we're just going to...
As the motion was made, it is no conditions. It's an NX zoning.
You're probably right that there aren't that many issues, but staff is actually coming forward and said we shouldn't do this, even if it's not restaurant. So I just have an issue with doing that.
I've got concerns about approving it for a restaurant. Councilmember Price.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it, given that we don't have many green lights here at all. I think at the very least, I'd like to possibly defer it so we can get some of the details ironed out if we think there's a way to make it work.
I'm not sure what we're going to know if we defer it and if we don't know tonight, because
well, in that
I hate
case,
deferring things just to defer.
well, there's a motion on the table, but
There's a motion.
I guess what I'm saying is that I would not be in favor, but I would be in favor of deferring.
You can make a motion to defer if you wish.
Does that trump an existing motion?
By the mayor's rule, if we get a motion to defer, that trumps that takes it off, that moves it.
Well, then in that case, I'll move to defer.
Is there a second? Fails for lack of a second. We have a motion and a second to approve NX zoning. Any further discussion? All in favor of the zone? Yes.
Discussion. I mean, I don't have a dog in this hunt, but it just seems like you're talking about 60 feet next to almost a whole block of NX, and he has opportunities to cover his parking issue. I'm not clear what the concern is, so I guess I'd like to know ahead of the vote what the trepidation is for restaurant.
I have a recommendation for staff that he doesn't have enough parking for a restaurant. I don't have an arrangement for a restaurant. I still have concerns about making approvals for permanent use with a temporary arrangement for parking, because once you put the restaurant in and the parking goes away, you still have an issue. Sure.
And I'd like to amend my motion to approve with the condition that restaurants not be allowed.
We have a motion. Mr. DiPolito, do you accept that amendment? We have a motion and a second to approve NX zoning with the one condition, and that is restaurants are not allowed. Any further discussion? Councilmember Price.
Again, I think that I certainly was inclined to think that there was no support, coming into it. So I have not thought it through with respect to any other conditions, and I think staff has some reservations too about what conditions they might put on if they thought it would go. So given that we have a new motion on the table, and according to the mayor's rules, we can supersede that with a motion to defer, I will once again move to defer.
Is there a second?
I'll second, just because it's gone through a process that we've had no, and then all of a sudden there's something different, so I'm willing to consider, but not.
All in favor, any further discussion on the motion to defer? Motion to defer to next regular zoning meeting? March 9th. I'm going to vote against it if it's tied, just so y'all recognize where I'm voting. We have a motion and a second to defer. All in favor of the motion to defer? That would be Councilmember Price and Councilmember Eichelhardt. All opposed? DiPolito, Diamond, and Wood. All right, we're back to the motion to approve with the condition of no restaurant. Mr. Councilmember DiPolito.
Mr. Mayor, not that I want to spur another motion to defer, but I think the original motion probably should have also included zoning to the site plan that was submitted. Since
We can change that
typically zone to a
if
site
that's
plan.
acceptable to Councilmember Diamond. So we have a motion and a second to, it's conditioned upon the current site plan and it's conditioned upon no restaurant.
Correct.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That's DiPolito and Diamond. All opposed? Eichelhardt and Price. Mayor votes with approving the NX zoning on the current site plan with no restaurants. So you can bring in a retail. If you want a restaurant, you're going to have to come in and redesign the project and tear down a building, or half of a building.
Okay.
So, yes, Councilmember Price.
I'd just like to know from staff if, as we now see this as approved, was there anything else you would have put on this as a condition?
I think it's a moot point.
No, I mean, are we done? That's it? I mean,
You can ask the question, and they can respond if they wish, but the vote has been taken.
we could take another vote if we so...
Well, the mayor would probably rule that out of order.
Okay, never mind. No, I'd really like to know, because I mean, I really feel like we didn't attend to this enough, thinking that it was not
I
going
would
through.
suggest after this meeting, you can get with Brad and see if he'll come up with any other answers. Councilmember Kay Love was going to call the next agenda item.
RZ 2014-04474, 1001 Roswell Manor Circle, Old Alabama, LLC. Mr. Townsend.
This is a proposed rezoning for subject property from RS9 Single Family Residential to OP Office Park. This is the location of the property on Old Alabama. This is an aerial photograph for the councils. When you're looking at this aerial, remember that across the street was approved for a self-storage building. So that does change the dynamic. That very steep sloped tree parcel will end up being approved for a self-storage building. So that changes this location. This is the zoning area of the property. The RS9 designation of all of that that's currently zoned RS9 at one time was actually OP. Then it was zoned to a townhouse development, which ended up a pipe farm and was not built, has been purchased, and now is single-family homes. And the applicant and owner of that location wants to do a small office building for this piece of property. This is the site plan for the small office building. It will face the intersection of Roswell Manor Circle and Old Alabama with the parking on the rear of this location. This is the landscaping plan for the proposed office building. Planning Commission recommended approval of this proposal with staff conditions. Staff recommends approval of the application with conditions.
And the conditions that you're recommending?
Conform to the site plan, revised the plat dealing with the securing of it right away along Old Alabama, and that there be no access along Old Alabama. Those are the two conditions recommended by staff.
Does the council have any questions for staff? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I assume the applicant is accepting these conditions?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Since there are new homes in the back, have all those homeowners been notified?
Your salespeople telling them that you're going to put an office building in front of you? We'll let him speak to that.
Okay, okay, because I'd hate for somebody to buy a house and say, the developer didn't tell me this was going in.
Right.
Then question about the site plan. If I'm reading the grading plan correctly, the parking lot is actually about 6 feet lower than the berm in the front. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right, and that'll have, so we'll have screening around the parking that's exposed to the street.
Right. So we won't see cars from Old Alabama.
At 6 feet, you wouldn't even see the top of the car.
Probably not even the top, right?
All right, thank you.
Does the council have any other questions for staff? Thank you. At this time, we'll hear from the applicant.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, my name is Renee Moline. I'm with JEH Homes. We are requesting to take from RS9 to OP. We are proposing a 5,100 square foot building called Holcomb Woods Professional Suites. This is an orphan parcel out in front of Roswell Manor. After meeting with staff and our earlier meetings, we've made several changes to the site plan, which I'll show you now. First of all is for the pedestrian access and connectivity. As you can see right here, we put in sidewalks to the back sidewalk. Also, the sidewalk goes to a little patio here and comes up to the parking lot. Also, as far as the screening that you were mentioning too, as you can see on this revised plan, we have the trees in the back, also to help screen from Old Alabama Road with the berm. So hopefully that'll add the protection that you would like. Another point that was brought up was the compact car parking right here with these three pieces. What we have done is we've put a load access zone right here in order to help back out of these spots. So, also with the ADA ramp, it's kind of hard to see with this tree right here, but right here we have wheelchair accessibility for the sidewalks, also with the building as well. After meeting with the staff review process, all the stormwater management has been calculated and approved to funnel into the Roswell Manor detention ponds, and it has been approved by Adele. So we've done all that previous to this meeting as well. Let me show you the elevations of the building. This also lines up. We have adjacent properties to two sides of the parcel. This the elevations also go with the stone and the stucco, which are in line with the surrounding properties. I'd like to thank the staff for guiding us and helping us through the process, and they've been very helpful. Any questions?
Mr. DiPolito had a question. Mr. DiPolito.
Yes, my question was regarding the homeowners and your new homeowners. Are they all aware that this project's being built as an office building?
Well, the signage was put up in front of this piece, and I believe the mailers went out.
Okay, so mailers did go, because they're new residents.
If the houses were CO'd and were a homeowner living there, they got a postcard. In all likelihood, a majority of them ended up to the applicant because they own the individual lots. So I can't tell you whether they're aware. I mean, they know there's a sign there. I mean, the sign's not hidden in any manner, so. But nobody has contacted staff related to the proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions council may have for the applicant? Does anyone wish to be heard on this matter from the public? Thank you, sir. What's the pleasure of council?
I'll make a motion to approve RZ 201-404474 with the conditions of staff and with the added condition that the sidewalks and backup space will be included per the site plan shown at the hearing.
You understand that condition?
Yes.
We have a motion to approve with the conditions of staff and the conditions regarding the sidewalk by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is the final plat, Providence subdivision on Webb Street. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. This is acceptance of a final plat of the Providence subdivision in Roswell on Webb Street. The applicant is Front Door Communities. All requirements of final plat have been met and accepted by staff. The applicant's here if you have any questions. 13 townhomes and 3 single-family lots.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. I guess lots 1, 2, and 3 are included in this final plat?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a copy of the site plan that we approved during the zoning of this, but I thought it was 3 or 4 homes clustered around a central courtyard. Is that what we approved?
I don't have that either.
I can answer that, Mark.
Okay.
Dealing with the discussion of including this in the historic district, there was a representation of trying to save a tree on the lot. I'm not sure that the health of the tree was worth saving. So there was actually 4 parcels, or 4 cottage homes going to be located there. So they're looking at 3 individual lots with a common driveway that actually serves all 3 lots.
Well,
And
how
no
does,
tree. And
so
no
how
tree.
does that work if we zoned to a site plan?
You didn't zone to the site plan, you just changed the district. I don't believe it was zoned to a plan.
We just changed the district.
You changed the historic district line.
So the HPC approved the site plan?
Right.
Okay, all right. 'Cause I just remember they went through great lengths to work around that tree, and it was a big deal.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I think that's one of our things we see with a lot of our big trees.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion? Councilmember Price.
Just, I'll make the motion, but I just wanted to clarify, does that Camp Avenue go all the way through?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. All right, move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Next item is approval of initiation of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code. Mr. Townsend?
How would the council like me to go through the changes? We have included the spreadsheet as well as the backup material.
Can you summarize?
The cleanup to the Unified Development Code takes into consideration things that staff has noticed in the last 8 months needed to take care of. There are 121 individual changes.
Would you describe these as technical changes?
A lot of them are even graphical, typos, ends of sentence that we're cleaning up. Kind of majority of them are dealing with the stormwater, that the city engineer dealing with the references in the erosion, sedimentation, and pollution control. A lot of those changes are being requested in that manner. Some are really generic. I think we've dealt with committee. The ones on the parking for the historic district were referencing our parking numbers. That was really one of the real changes at committee. This will be processed to the Planning Commission and then back to you for first reading.
Will it come to committee before it comes to the first reading?
Not necessarily, unless you direct it so.
All right.
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, I did have a couple comments. Trying to find a page number here. Page 10-27. We had a discussion at committee about the channel letters in the historic district, and I'm okay with HPC weighing in on that, but I would like for them to make a determination on that, because I think reverse channel letters are probably okay.
Okay.
And for that discussion, I think we don't want raceways, but reverse channel letters should probably be acceptable.
Actually, I'm going to make a suggestion also in dealing with a sign change that we have noticed. We control the wall sign size in Parkway Village to 32 square feet. The Fresh Market that wants to go in Parkway Village wants a larger sign. The prior code would allow them go to 96 square feet. Staff would be making that recommended change to be consistent with what was prior sign code controlling maximum wall signs in Parkway Village to 96 square feet. That just happened this week.
It's 1 square foot per linear foot of store frontage is the controlling.
Or max.
But a maximum.
And if you look
so
on...
in a grocery store, if they have 96 linear feet of frontage, they could have up to 96 feet.
If you look on page 1027 of your... Did you all get this in your backup material? 1027, that chart. You can see the RX, DR, DX, DH, REC, and PV has a maximum of 32. That's what we'll be changing the PV to a maximum of 96.
Right, but the limiting factor is the store frontage, because it says up in the allocation section, 1 square foot of sign area per linear foot of store frontage.
So if Fresh Market has 140 feet of store frontage,
they could have up to 96.
They would have up to 32.
Well, the way it's written. That's right. But I'm trying to clarify the change that you're suggesting.
Our suggestion would be up to 96, correct.
Is that just for Parkway Village or in all those?
Just Parkway Village.
So the other districts that are currently at 32 would remain 32.
Right.
Okay, but once again, it's still it's
proportionate.
1 square foot per linear foot.
Right.
Up to the max.
Up to max.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yes. On 38, we had talked a little bit about the sidewalk signs, and we have the sidewalk sign must be at least 25 feet from another sidewalk sign unless the building frontage is less. Can we say something to the effect, or the maximum, I guess I'm trying to get it, is the most amount of distance between the signs as possible. So it's 25 feet unless the building frontage is less, in which case it would be the maximum achievable, something to that effect. In reality, it'll solve itself in the field, but you don't want somebody saying, well, I'm allowed to put the sign 5 feet from this guy's sign, and because I have less than 25 feet. So I'm just trying to get the maximum distance achievable if you have less than 25 feet, if that makes sense.
So we're looking to add a statement which would maximize the separation if store frontages are less than 25 feet in width.
Yes.
We will work on language to make sure it's included in first reading.
Thank you. And then on 11-9 regarding the transportation director, I see you have a note there that says refer to policy. Does that mean you are doing away with?
Taking that out, and I'm going to refer to the policy that they currently have, correct.
Okay, so F would just refer to the
Transportation's policy, correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for staff? Councilmember Price.
Back on the Exhibit A, on the very first page, which down near the bottom, the water quality treatment facilities need not be located on an individual lot of record. I'm not sure I understand how a detention pond then is owned.
So you're looking at number 30, which is on page 1127, where we struck through retention and water quality?
Correct, and then the new sentence below.
Water treatment facilities such as bioretention pools, what Public Works Environmental, and hopefully Mark's walking this way, in dealing with providing them in subdivisions, they may cross lots, they may be created in the back of lots, they may be common to a couple of different locations, so they don't have a lot of record, and that's what we're trying to encourage them to do. Did I state that correctly? Okay. As long as he shakes his head yes, I'm doing it right.
Relates to like swales, that would be a water quality treatment swale that would go across multiple lots.
And that's just for water quality facilities, not for detention ponds, correct?
Right.
Any other questions?
Wait, I'm not sure I understand. This says, though, it says such as a bioretention pond. So we're saying it does or doesn't apply to that?
The wording is the way it's drafted. A water quality feature could cross property lines, but be the individual lot owner's responsibility to properly maintain so the water would flow through.
And a bioretention pond would be an example of that, which is not a detention facility.
Caleb has a comment.
Councilmember Price, detention ponds are required to be on a separate lot of record, but that's not what this is referencing. So this is the water quality feature. But if it's a detention pond, it still must be on a separate lot of record.
Correct.
Okay, so what exactly is a water quality treatment facility?
That's a broad term that could include a couple of different scenarios that Donnell looks at in trying to how are they treating in the water as it goes through the project.
Other questions? Councilmember Price, do you have any other questions?
I just don't understand that. I mean, if everybody else understands
We're not
it, I'm
taking
fine.
a final vote, so my recommendation would be to take some time to sit down with staff
Oh,
to
this is not a
understand.
final thing?
This is initiation.
Oh, okay, fine.
All right, so this is the, do we have a motion to approve the initiation of the text amendment? Councilmember Diamond.
Move to initiate. I know there will be a lot more discussion before we get to first and second reading.
Motion to initiate the text amendment by Councilmember Diamond. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. All in favor, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item is approval of an initiation of an amendment to the Unified Development Code, Section 11.6.4, Development Impact Fee Computation. Ms. Wakefield.
Okay. Thank you. This is a request to amend the Unified Development Code, the section related to the development impact fee, to amend that section to update the city's impact fee ordinance. After many meetings and many work sessions with mayor and council, it was agreed upon at the last committee to move forward with option C to update the impact fee. If this initiation is approved by mayor and council, this will move on to planning commission for their consideration and then back to mayor and council for consideration.
Does the council have any questions for staff? Councilmember DiPolito.
Actually, I have a comment, not a question, and I was looking at the existing impact fee costs, and we were told at committee that the current fee for that's listed for commercial was $3,159 per thousand, and that was based on a typical shopping center, and that's actually incorrect. That was based on a supermarket, which would be a standalone supermarket, which is significantly higher than a shopping center. If you look at a shopping center, it's actually $758. At a specialty retail center, which will probably have more specialty type shops in the future here, I would guess, that's only $1,400. So I guess there's been a lot of discussion about how we're not increasing the fees on commercial, when in fact we're more than doubling fees for the average commercial space. In fact, the $3,159 is higher, significantly higher than most commercial uses, with the exception of convenience markets, drive-in banks, fast food restaurants, and restaurants in general. Every other category, and it's obviously equal to supermarket, every other category, it's an increase. So just wanted to point that out because that was some misinformation that we were given before. And given that, I have real concerns about going with the fee C, because the current fee then would double for most of the commercial uses and double pretty much for a good portion of the residential as well. So I think it's going to C is very significant, much more so than we had talked about in committee.
Any other council members have any questions or comments? Well, at this time, I either need a motion to approve or a motion to defer. This is initiation, and there will be an opportunity to amend it. Councilmember Diamond.
I think there's probably a lot more to be heard on this, but I'm comfortable initiating it so we can have those discussions.
Motion to initiate by Councilmember Diamond. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Any further discussion by council? Councilmember Price.
In our packet, there's, it's called packet page 1069, 1070, and 1071. And for the life of me, I can't figure out if there's a difference between page 1070 and 1071.
Can someone illuminate the situation? Grinding slowly to a halt. Me, I'm just going to go out and beat the drum. That Black History Month. Do we have an answer to that age-old question? Is there a difference between these two pages?
I can answer it. It's the same page.
It is the same page.
It's duplicated.
There's a duplicate page. So I'm sure staff can take care of that before the next, as part of this initiation process. Any other questions or comments?
Wait, how does Councilmember DiPolito is so sure that they're the same page?
Well, if you look at the
I'm
bottom...
happy with the answer. I
Look at
don't
the
care.
bottom left corner. It's page 1128 on both of them.
Well, section 11.
Right, this is an initiation. I encourage all staff and council to
All right,
locate any technical
it appears-
typos
yeah, we
or
have-
duplicates.
We have a agreement that there's a redundancy.
All right, we have a motion and a second, or do we have a motion and a
I
second?
had a question about the motion.
Yes.
Is this initiating the text amendment for discussion with the three scenarios A, B, and C, or is this an initiation for just C?
It's initiation for C, but it can be revised to substitute A or B at any point in time, or any amendments can be made. So an initiation does not exclude any amendments or changes. It's not exclusive. We're initiating it under C, but with a vote of council, or it can be changed.
I guess I would assume that A and B, or I'm asking that A and B be included in the backup materials for the Planning Commission.
Yes,
for all your
we will do
discussion.
that.
Any other questions before we entertain a vote? All in favor of the initiation, raise their hands, please. That is unanimous. And with that, we come to Transportation Department. Councilmember Nancy Diamond.
Thank you, sir.
Short road.
This item is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign an impact fee agreement for Old Roswell Road at Old Ellis Road Development, and approval to use citywide resurfacing and reconstruction account to cover the city's share in the amount of $157,979.62. Mr. Strickland is here to tell us about it.
I think it's still evening, yeah, it's still evening. Good evening. The Department of Transportation is seeking your approval and authorization for the city manager or mayor to sign impact fee agreement with Edward Andrews Homes. They're providing $114,074.62, and the request is to use their impact fee, which is $37,846.76, to be added with $157,979.62 in order to pay for the improvement of Old Roswell Road. They're doing a roundabout about two-thirds of the way between Old Ellis and the city limits lines, and the grand total is $309,900 for that project. We did review this with the legal and the finance department and determined that impact fees would probably not be the way to go in terms of our match, and request the use of the citywide resurfacing and reconstruction account, which is for this type of improvement. In analyzing the road, we found that the road only had 2 inches of base under it and was carrying heavy traffic through an industrial area, and that's not a good situation. And they agreed to make that improvement, and so it'd all be made at one time.
Does the council have any questions for Mr. Strickland? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Diamond for approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Our city attorney has a report.
Thank you, Mayor. The first item I have is an approval of amendment to Section 3.4.1, location of sales, City of Roswell Code of Ordinances regarding location of alcohol sales in the Parkway Village. Is the first reading. Basically, what this ordinance will do is it will fix a problem from when we approved the UDC. We actually replaced Section 3.4.1B. You can see in the red line picture, in the red line copy, we actually replaced B by accident, which was supposed to go to A. This also will this will put the regular B back in and move the B that we adopted to A, which is where it's supposed to go. It will also lower the square footage for a retail supermarket gross building area from 30,000 square feet in Parkway Village to 24,000 square feet if approved. And this will be the first reading. If I can go ahead and read.
If you please read the ordinance.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 3 Alcoholic Beverages, Article 3.4, Location of Sales of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendment. Chapter 3 Alcoholic Beverages, Article 3.4, Location of Sales, Section 3.4.1, Zoning Requirements, Existing Licenses of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, is hereby amended by deleting Section 3.4.1 in its entirety and substituting therefore a new Section 3.4.1 to read as follows. Text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's some language in this original ordinance that seems odd. In particular, where it talks about you can't have a malt beverage license or packaged wine license at outlets within 200 feet of the center line of Crossville-King-Woodstock intersection. I mean, that just seems bizarre to me.
Not if you owned the liquor store there. It was already there.
Well, is that an
You can make it, you can amend that to change that if you wish. You can make that a suggested change.
Well, there's not a liquor store there now, is there?
At the time, there was.
I'm just trying to think within 200 feet of the center line of either one of those.
My recollection was there was a specific reason for this having to do with to limit competition, but I think the reason has long since passed, and I would support revision to eliminate this peculiar language.
Yeah, I like to get rid of extraneous language in our ordinances, so I would suggest we strike out from outlets.
Would you like to approve the first reading with that change?
Well, let me ask my other question.
Okay.
Language. Now, the next sentence talks about you can't. A license won't be granted to a service station except at service stations meeting all other requirements of the law, and in which at least 90% of the total gross sales are generated by sales other than alcoholic beverages. I understand the second half of that sentence, but the first half of that sentence makes no sense. Unless Mr. Davidson can interpret that for us.
Yeah, I think what is intended to mean is you can't sell packages of beer at a service station. That's with or without gas pumps, basically. Unless you meet everything else within the ordinance, our ordinances. And then, on top of that, you would also have at least 90% of the gross sales had to be from items that are not alcoholic beverages. So if you have a service station without gas pumps,
Is this peculiar to the Parkway Village District? Can we change this to make it consistent with other alcohol rules and just have it the same across the city and not special for Parkway Village?
you can just take that sentence out.
Well, I guess the sentence to me just doesn't make sense.
Let's just take it out.
I think the intent was to make sure that you don't have a service station that basically...
Was competing with the liquor store that got this all drafted.
There was somebody that had some influence.
Somebody had some influence.
So we'd take out that sentence beginning with no package?
Yes, take that out all the way to the last sentence, probably. Keep the last sentence.
All right, then that would clean this paragraph up. And my last question is, up where we're determining the districts, we list historic properties overlay district, and I guess my first comment is we actually refer to that as the historic overlay districts, not the historic properties overlay district. And would it be better to list the districts rather than to refer to the overlay area?
Parkway Village isn't an overlay.
No.
Well, this is saying the historic properties overlay district.
It talks about the historic properties overlay. That's just the way that it was worded when it went to Muni Code, so...
We cleared it up. The UDC refers to it as the historic overlay district, not the historic properties overlay district. So we need to make it consistent with the UDC.
We'll do it.
But so that encompasses the 4 downtown districts within there? So that's a good way of doing that, David?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I move to approve the first reading with eliminating the word properties from the second sentence. It's actually the first sentence, second line of first sentence, I'm sorry. Then eliminating in the second sentence, beginning at eliminating the words at outlets within 200 feet, or at outlets within 200 feet of the center line of the Crossville King Woodstock intersection. Said measurement shall be the shortest possible straight line distance. And then eliminating the third sentence that starts with no package malt beverage or license or package wine license shall be granted to a service station in Parkway Village. Just eliminate that whole sentence. And that should clean us up a little bit.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Motion to approve the first reading with the amendments by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel, litigation, real estate. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. All in favor? I got a unanimous vote. I see their hands. I see their pinky wiggling. We're done.